The 1st of May arrived with a torrential downpour. Phoenix Crest Manor was shrouded in a misty rain, making it seem ethereal and illusory. Nestled within the fog, the Eyrie looked like a palace in the clouds. Next to Theodore Vance's bedroom was a fully equipped medical suite. It lacked for nothing, from rare medicinal herbs to advanced medical equipment one would only find in a major hospital. It was staffed by a team of excellent doctors, ready for any of Theodore's needs. Everyone in Port Sterling knew that the old patriarch of the Vance dynasty was clinging to life with everything he had, surrounding himself with a medical team that was second to none in the country. Under the eaves of the medical suite's covered walkway, Dr. Linus Hayes, the young, brilliant private physician in whom Theodore placed his utmost trust, leaned against a pillar. He stared out at the pounding rain with a vacant, cold expression, silently smoking a cigarette. Water poured from the roof's drained spout in a solid stream. The medical prodigy slowly raised a hand, catching the torrent in his palm. The water splashed against his face in a fine mist, but his hand remained empty. What slipped through his fingers was the irretrievable flow of time. At the courtyard gate, the old butler, Mr. Watkins, holding a large black umbrella, walked slowly in. As he reached the center of the courtyard, he happened to glance up and see the young doctor on the walkway. Mr. Watkins instinctively paused, his gaze fixed on the doctor, his expression complex. Dr. Hayes, focused on the water, cupping his hand, sensed the solitary figure in the courtyard from the corner of his eye. He shot a quick, emotionless glance in the butler's direction. Mr. Watkins's wrinkled, withered hand tightened on the umbrella's handle. He lowered his head and silently walked forward. How was the old master today? The old butler's tone betrayed no emotion. Linus answered coolly, he's showing improvement. Thank you for your hard work, Dr. Hayes, Mr. Watkins sighed softly, not waiting for a reply before stepping into the bedroom. Linus hadn't seemed to intend to reply anyway. A faint, detached look colored his eyes as he continued to watch his hand. He gently cupped his fingers, gathering a small pool of water, which, in a matter of moments, overflowed and slipped away. Inside the bedroom, the old patriarch was instructing his personal maid, Lily, to retrieve the aged liquor Ethan had brought him last time from under the bed. She poured him a sip. Seeing that the old man wanted more, she glanced at the small plastic water bottle in her hand, now less than half full, and frowned. Sir, you can't have any more. Theodore Vance smacked his lips, closing his eyes with an air of unfulfilled desire. Then we'll have more tomorrow. Just as he finished speaking, Mr. Watkins entered the bedroom. Lily greeted the butler warmly before tactfully excusing herself. Theo, the old butler said, sitting by the bed with concern. Feeling better today? They had met as young men in the military, moving from bunkmates to lifelong brothers. Their bond was that of family. Theodore smiled faintly. I'm a flickering candle, 1 foot in the grave. I live one day at a time. Mr. Watkins offered no empty words of comfort. He pursed his pale lips, picked up the water bottle from the nightstand, and gave Theodore another sip before taking one himself. Easy there. My grandson bought that for me. If you want some, have your own grandson buy you a bottle, Theodore teased, then paused, his tone becoming meaningful. You're just too stubborn. What is there between you and your son that can't be talked out? At our age, you should call him back from his hometown. I could talk. You don't know how many more times you'll get to see each other. Mr. Watkins said nothing, instead taking another defiant gulp of the liquor. This is good stuff. For once, that grandson of yours did something that wasn't a grandson-like thing. The two old friends joked for a moment before Mr. Watkins placed the bottle back under the bed. His tone shifted. Lately, a new group has popped up in Port Sterling. The East Side Syndicate. They're gaining momentum fast. The East Side Syndicate. Theodore's sparse eyebrows knitted together in a formidable frown. What's their story? It's a man named Leo Bishop, Mr. Watkins said. I had him looked into. He's killed a man, done time. Got out and went right back to his old ways, running with a bunch of thugs and petty criminals. But recently, they've been making big moves. Hitting underground casinos, robbing drug traffickers, fighting for territory, collecting protection money from every nightclub. They're doing it all. They've even put the word out that, after midnight, the entire South Side belongs to them. Someone's pulling his strings, Theodore said with a faint smile. That top federal prosecutor is still in town. He came here before the new year, practically carrying his own coffin, swearing he'd either take down the Tigers and sweep out the gangs or die trying to bring peace back to Port Sterling. Heh, at a time like this, who would be so bold? Mr. Watkins said, there are rumors of a figure known only as the Grandmaster, but no one's ever seen him. I can't for the life of me figure out who it could be. Theodore grew thoughtful, then asked abruptly, what has Ethan been up to lately? The same old story, chasing women. But he's been spending more time with his wife and paying more attention to Elysian media. Behind the scenes, though, he's still investigating his mother's death. Theodore fell silent for a moment. You continue investigating the celestial axis in secret. Help him if you can. I truly owe that boy. The last time he came to see me, I could tell he wanted to talk about the celestial axis, but for some reason, he held back. Mr. Watkins's eyes suddenly dimmed. He said gravely, those bastards are all new blood now. They're far more cautious than they were 30 years ago. If I hadn't stumbled upon them by accident, we might still not even know they've risen from the ashes. It might not be a resurrection, Theodore said. It's possible someone else is just using the celestial axis's name. I went to the Red Tower, Mr. Watkins continued, thinking I could investigate through official channels. But after just a few visits, a man sent by Ruffin came to warn me. He said the Red Tower would not interfere in the feud between the Vance and the celestial axis, and they didn't want us making any moves on their territory. That old fox is a spook bird right now. He'd never let us stir up trouble, Theodore chuckled. And here's something you don't know. That top-tier prosecutor from D.C., he has a blood debt to settle with him. This political game, it's every bit as bloody as the battlefield. We'll have to find another way to investigate, then. Theodore looked at him and sighed for no apparent reason. We're old, my friend. We're both old. You're estranged from your son, so you deserve your loneliness. I have this huge family, children and grandchildren all around me. But in reality, I'm even lonelier than you. I suppose. I deserve it too. Mr. Watkins glanced up at the family portrait on the wall and muttered, the heart of man is a snake that tries to swallow an elephant. Theodore smiled. When I'm gone, if you don't want to go back to your hometown, you can stay here peacefully. You can't count on the first or second branches, but Victor will take care of you to the end. Mr. Watkins took a shallow breath. If you're gone, what would I stay here for? Death is an unavoidable end for all humanity, and old men facing it are naturally more composed than the young. The two old brothers talked for over half an hour before Mr. Watkins rose to leave. As he stepped outside, Dr. Linus Hayes was still watching the rain, his face an emotionless mask. He didn't even spare the butler a glance. A short while later, Linus checked his watch, returned to the medical suite to grab his equipment, and went to give Theodore his checkup. After the examination, everything appeared relatively normal. Linus, a man of few words, gave a few cursory instructions and was about to leave. Dr. Hayes, Theodore suddenly called out. How many years have you been on my medical team? Linus blinked. 4 or 5 years now. A medical genius with an Ivy League education, spending your days by the side of a useless old man like me. Don't you feel you're wasting your talents? Linus smiled. With my credentials, $1 million salary would be pushing it. What you give me is far beyond that. How could I possibly feel my talents are wasted? Theodore's expression didn't change. His cloudy eyes stared directly into Linus's. When did you go abroad? He asked abruptly. Linus was taken aback. Right after high school. I was fast-tracked. It's been almost 10 years. A real talent, Theodore sighed. I know my time is short. After I'm gone, you can take a position at one of the Vance family's hospitals. You're a bit young, but with your qualifications, no one would dare criticize you for being a vice president. Linus looked genuinely flattered and quickly bowed his head. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. At the same time, Everett Yates, who was languishing in the city detention center awaiting his final sentencing, had just finished meeting with his lawyer. He returned to his cell block, head hanging low. In the past weeks, he had dispatched his lawyer to pull every string he could, but they were either met with closed doors or given the runaround. No one dared to touch his case. It was often said that a starved camel is still bigger than a horse, but it all depended on whose hands it died in. Aside from not wanting to get dragged into the fire, those powerful figures didn't want to offend the Vance family. Who would bother with a fallen dog like him? Hope was dwindling, but with a charge of murder with a firearm, he was looking at serious time. All he could think about was the family business he had built from scratch, now being handed over piece by piece to his enemies. His own son was dead at another's hand. This blood feud that had destroyed his family. He would have to wait until he was a ghost to get his revenge. Just as he was seething with grief and anger, a guard came with a message. Mr. Yates, your lawyer wants to see you again. The guard had received plenty of bribes, so his attitude was naturally polite. Everett Yates frowned. He just met with him less than 10 minutes ago. Did he forget to mention something important? He feared this important matter was just more bad news. Another victory for Victor Vance, no doubt. That bastard. If I were still on the outside, I'd eat you alive. Everett cursed under his breath, rising angrily to be led to the meeting room. When he saw the lawyer, however, Everett froze. The man waiting for him wasn't his lawyer at all. It was a young man with a buzz cut. But the man was indeed a lawyer, and Everett knew who he was: Chase, Harrison Vance's man. In fact, even without Harrison Vance's reputation behind him, Chase was a notorious figure in legal circles. After returning from his studies abroad, this legal elite had carved out a unique niche for himself, specializing in defending mobsters. In cases he handled, the accused gangsters often received the lightest possible sentences, and a few of his classic cases even resulted in acquittals. His infamy was matched only by his fame, which naturally led to him being recruited by the Vance family's legal team. Harrison greatly admired this rare talent, and the two spent so much time together that, despite their different personalities, they became like brothers. "Mr. Yates, I don't think I need to introduce myself, do I?" Chase said with a faint smile. After his initial shock, Everett forced a smirk. "Mr. Chase, your reputation certainly precedes you." "Cut the crap," Chase said, showing no courtesy. "I'm here to talk business." "Harrison Vance sent you?" "Oomph. What could you possibly have to talk to me about?" Chase said, "First, I need to confirm something. Do you know who killed your son?" Everett's fists clenched. His lawyer had told him that Travis had gone to Ethan Vance's home, seeking revenge, and had disappeared afterward. Wasn't it obvious who the killer was? What he didn't know was that Travis had actually died at Harrison's hands. The fact that Harrison had shown up at Ethan's underground garage that day to demand the man was proof enough that he had been tailing Travis all along. The reason he hadn't acted sooner was that he wanted to kill Travis and pin the blame on Ethan, making Everett believe that Ethan had killed his son. Hearing Chase bring up this agonizing memory, Everett forced himself to remain calm. With a grim face, he said, "It seems the Vance family's internal strife has escalated again. Is Harrison planning to make a move on his uncle?" Chase ignored the question. "I need to confirm one more thing. Do you know how much of the Yates family business Victor Vance has already swallowed up?" Everett snapped. "Don't give me that lawyer-speak bullshit. I don't need you to tell me any of this." "Oomph. Just get to the point. What do you want from me?" Chase nodded and got straight to the point. "Tell those loyal old board members of yours to sell Triumph Investments, the subsidiary of your Triumph Corporation, to Harrison Vance." Everett's eyes widened, and he sneered. "That's my core company, and you're just asking for it? Heh." Victor Vance is gnawing on that tough bone right now, struggling to find a way to bite down. We're at a stalemate. So tell me on what grounds? Huh? Is Harrison Vance better than Victor Vance? It seems you have a lot of confidence in your people. Chase's eyes suddenly filled with mockery. He opened his briefcase, took out several photos, and placed them in front of Everett. "The president of Triumph Investments is your mistress. The CFO is your cousin. Well, here they are, sleeping together. Want to guess if, while living in your mansion and sleeping in your bed, they've been discussing how to transfer your assets?" Everett stared at the lurid photos, his eyes wide with disbelief. It was in his blood to be cuckolded. It was fate. That bitch. I'll make sure she doesn't live through the night. "Don't be a fool," Chase said. "Forget your shady hitmen. Even the lawyer you just met with has been bought by them. Everything you hear now is what they want you to hear. So let me tell you something real. On the board of Triumph Corporation, half of the brothers who fought alongside you to build your empire have already been won over by Victor Vance. I believe that in less than 10 days, Triumph Investments will belong to the Vances." He then produced a stack of documents, all evidence of how Everett's mistress and cousin had been siphoning off assets from the Yates family. "Is that clear enough for you?" Chase smiled. "I think you'd better make a decision before they squander the entire investment company. Time is not on your side." Staring at the evidence before him, Everett was overcome with a wave of dizziness, his vision blurring. That goddamn pair. If it weren't for the few powerful old board members they still feared, they would have probably sold the company to Victor Vance long ago. After a long moment, Everett gritted his teeth. "Which of my old brothers betrayed me?" Chase calmly pulled out more documents. "See for yourself. To be honest, your Triumph Corp started as a criminal enterprise. They were loyal enough to you, but Victor Vance has too many ways to threaten and entice. Someone was bound to crack." Everett's breathing grew heavy. "You want my company. How do you plan to deal with Victor Vance?" "I can't tell you that, but I guarantee we can get revenge for you and your son. On that point, at least, our goals are the same." Everett fell silent, weighing his options. Chase continued, "Consider this a chance from God. If Mayor Cole hadn't gotten into trouble, your entire empire would have already been in Victor Vance's pocket. We wouldn't have even had time to make a move." Everett remained silent. "I'll handle your case at the final sentencing," Chase said. "I'll do my best to get you a few years off. Harrison has also promised that when you get out, he'll give you a large sum of money, enough for you to retire comfortably. Don't hesitate. Cooperating with us is your only way out now. And bringing down Victor Vance is an outcome we both want to see. Let me think about it, Everett said gravely. Come back and see me tomorrow. Chase understood. The old man wanted to see his old brothers first. Fine, I'll be back tomorrow. But let me remind you, don't expect your old cronies to be able to handle Victor Vance. They can't protect your empire. Everett said nothing, walking back to his cell with heavy steps. Chase calmly gathered his documents, walked out of the detention center, and got into the Cullinan waiting at the curb. Harrison Vance was in the back seat, engrossed in a financial magazine. Well, he asked Chase. Not a problem, Chase replied. He has no other choice. Harrison nodded and said to the driver, to the meatpacking plant. The torrential rain had not let up, pouring down like a waterfall. The heavy, dark clouds showed no signs of retreating. Occasional lightning tore across the sky, followed moments later by claps of thunder. The weather was demonic, oppressive, and grim. Chase was slightly puzzled. What are we going to do there? Harrison didn't answer right away. He finished a page of his magazine, and only as he turned it did he speak, asking abruptly, Chase, what do you think of my cousin Ethan? Chase was taken aback. I don't know him well. How should I know? Really not well. Are you crazy? How would I know him well? He was in the States for the 8 years he was missing, too, Harrison said calmly. Chase was speechless. I know the president, too. What's with you? This is coming out of nowhere. Harrison smiled, fell silent for a moment, then asked again, Chase, I've never asked you. Why did you decide to come back? Isn't being a lawyer more lucrative abroad? Chase chuckled. I wanted to stay abroad, but, I specialize in defending mobsters. I made a lot of enemies, got shot at no less than 10 times. Making money is important, but you have to be alive to spend it. No matter what, it's safer back home. Harrison glanced at him and smiled faintly. No less than 10 times? Are you some kind of unkillable cockroach? No wonder. You know how to fight, and you know how to handle a gun. You're not that easy to kill. Chase looked quite pleased with himself. I've been training in classical martial arts since I was a kid. Taking care of a few foreigners is no problem, of course. And your marksmanship? Did you really just teach yourself? Harrison asked with a smile, then added, Chase, are you hiding something from me? Chase froze again, frowning. What's gotten into you? What could I possibly be hiding? My shooting skills. If I didn't teach myself, who else would have taught me? I have to kill my master for teaching me such crap. Harrison's smile widened. Brother, are you sure there's nothing you're hiding from me? Chase was annoyed. What do you mean by that? Harrison stared into his eyes, his smile vanishing abruptly. Answer me. Yes or no? Chase met his gaze without flinching, snapping. What the hell are you accusing me of? I'm telling you no. Seeing his good friend getting angry, Harrison suddenly laughed out loud. No? You think I didn't know you went to the Red Tower last night for some English lessons? Huh? You stole my card and dare to hide it from me? What? You think I'm too cheap to give it to you? Chase cursed under his breath and grinned sheepishly. Is that what this is about? Christ, can you not be so dramatic? You made it sound like I did something to betray you. The atmosphere was so tense, I was just messing with you, Harrison said with a laugh. What? Are you really angry? So sensitive. Chase flipped him the middle finger, glared at him, and grumbled, Why are we going to the meatpacking plant? To burn incense for Travis Yates? Has he become a vengeful ghost who sits by your bed at night and sings you to sleep? Harrison's smile faded. He looked out the window and said flatly, I'm a little afraid of ghosts. He paused, then turned back to Chase. I'm afraid of the ghosts in my own house. Chase threw up his hands with a strange expression. Do I look like a ghost to you? If so, I'll sing you to sleep tonight. Ha ha. Harrison smiled too. Chase, you know me. The thing I hate most is betrayal. So, tell me, what should I do with the ghosts in my house? We're already on our way to the meatpacking plant. Do you really need to ask me? Chase rolled his eyes. So who is it? Let me prepare myself. They're probably acquaintances. I don't want to hesitate when the time comes. You'll know soon enough, Harrison said, returning to his magazine. You won't have to do anything today. So mysterious. You got issues, Chase muttered, turning to look out the window. Half an hour later, the Cullinan pulled into the meatpacking plant. Inside a large warehouse, a dozen bodyguards in black suits stood in 2 rows. Kneeling between them were 3 men, their faces bruised and swollen. When they saw Harrison, Chase, and the driver walk in, the bodyguards bowed their heads in unison. Mr. Harrison. Mr. Harrison, not young master. Chase noted the bodyguard's unusual form of address for Harrison. His eyes swept over their faces, and he realized they were all strangers. He didn't recognize a single one. Harrison strode toward the 3 kneeling men, who immediately began to cry and beg for mercy. You're Victor Vance's man, Harrison said, looking at the man kneeling on the far left, who just yesterday had been his personal bodyguard. His voice was ice cold. He planted you by my father's side 7 years ago, didn't he? The man trembled all over, pleading, young master, give me a chance. Let me prove my loyalty. Harrison shook his head. I've been giving you chances. You were with my father. I wouldn't have cared. But 3 years ago, you found a way to get close to me. How can I give you another chance? He ignored the man's continued pleas and turned to the other two. You two are from the second branch. One of you has been here 9 years, the other 5. My shark, I've only had it for 3 years. But it knows I'm the one who feeds it. So, even if I stick my hand in its mouth, it won't bite. And you? The two men were sobbing, banging their heads on the floor as they begged. Young master, give us a chance. We can help you deal with the second branch. Harrison took a breath and laughed mockingly. My aunt? Even a dog could deal with her. I don't need you. With that, Harrison slowly turned around to face Chase, holding out his hand. Give me the gun. Chase's mouth opened slightly. He pulled out his gun and racked the slide. Let me do it. Don't get your hands dirty. Harrison's lips were pressed into a tight line. He shook his head gently, his eyes still locked on Chase. Resigned, Chase handed him the gun. Harrison took it, but instead of using it himself, he tossed it to another bodyguard. Bang, bang, bang. After the 3 shots, Harrison stared coldly at the 3 corpses and ordered, don't let them go to waste. Feed them to the fish. He took the gun back from the bodyguard, turned to face Chase, and his eyes were utterly frigid. Chase felt a little uneasy under his gaze and forced a smile. What is it? Harrison's lips curled. He drew in a breath. Actually, I've known about those 3 for a long time. But I only found out recently. Chase's pupils contracted violently. Bang! As the gunshot echoed, a sharp ringing filled Chase's left ear, and the left side of his face was splattered with blood. The crooked lawyer didn't flinch, his face deathly pale, his body rigid as if his brain had shut down. His breathing was shaky. Out of the corner of his eye, he saw the driver who had been standing to his left fall to the ground. You recruited him. Did you know he was also one of Victor Vance's men? Harrison had been staring at Chase from the moment he raised the gun to the moment he killed the man. Chase's eyelids fluttered uncontrollably. In an instant, a thin layer of sweat broke out on his forehead. After a moment of mental blankness, he suddenly snatched the gun from Harrison's hand and fired several more shots into the driver's not-yet-dead body. He kept pulling the trigger even after the magazine was empty, as if it wasn't enough to vent his fury. Harrison took a deep breath and gently patted Chase's shoulder, a strange smile on his face. You need to be more careful from now on. Chase violently shrugged off his hand and roared. Are you fucking accusing me? Harrison, I always thought you considered me a brother. You've been watching me all this time, haven't you? Christ, I just hired a driver. Do I have to do a background check on his fucking ancestors? Should I have run him through a goddamn security clearance? Harrison appeared perfectly calm. Chase, you know I'm getting involved in the Vance family's internal war now. There can be no mistakes. My real opponent is my uncle. If we don't walk on eggshells, we're both going to die ugly, understand? Chase's breathing was heavy. He glared at him without a word. Clean this place up, Harrison said, taking a breath. After you're done, go take care of Everett Yates's mistress and her lover. A little gift for him. I want that signed acquisition contract on my desk before tonight. With that, Harrison turned and walked out. Chase stared at the familiar, yet alien back, a chill running down his spine. A moment later, he let out a hysterical curse. Fuck you, Harrison. Harrison didn't stop. He got into the Cullinan and drove away alone. The windshield wipers moved frantically, as if desperately trying to deny that the rain could obscure his vision. But every time they swiped, the glass was immediately blurred again. The cold eyes of the Vance family's eldest son and grandson were filled with a swirling, complex emotion. After the scene was cleaned up, Chase, fuming, drove one of the bodyguard's cars to Everett Yates' house. On the way, he sent a text message. At the same time, at Phoenix Crest Manor, Dr. Linus Hayes sat in a rocking chair on the covered walkway, a teacup in one hand, leisurely sipping his tea. In his other hand, he held his phone. With practiced ease, he switched to the phone's second, hidden operating system, sent a text, and then switched back. Just then, Eva Vance walked into the courtyard, holding an umbrella. Spotting the beautiful detective from a distance, Linus quickly stood up, pretended not to see her, and tried to walk calmly back to his room. Hey, why are you running? Am I going to eat you? Eva's brows furrowed, and she quickened her pace. Linus froze, turned to face her, and forced an awkward smile. Miss Vance, you're here. They stood facing each other. Eva stared at Linus's face, while he looked down at the puddle by her feet, where raindrops fell in ever-widening circles. The scene had the comical air of a fierce bandit queen staring down a poor, timid scholar. "You're like a block of wood. Move." Eva shoved Linus aside impatiently and walked into her grandfather's bedroom. Linus pouted and muttered, "Bossy broad." Downtown, in the underground garage of a large commercial center, 3 Mitsubishi Outlanders were parked at the entrance. Ethan Vance sat in the middle car, frowning at a text from Milo that read, "He's suspicious." Leo Bishop sat beside him, craning his neck to look at the commercial building outside. He swallowed hard and asked timidly, "Are we P10.My today?" In broad daylight. I mean, there are a few jewelry stores inside, but there are so many cameras and a lot of security guards. Ethan didn't reply to Milo's text. He put his phone away and smiled at Leo. "Scared?" Leo waved his hands frantically with an obsequious grin. No. With you here, I wouldn't even be scared to hit a bank." Following this robbery expert, Leo had truly seen the world. But so far, they had only hit illicit businesses. They had never touched a legitimate establishment. Ethan had even given strict orders against it. He had no idea why Ethan was suddenly targeting one today. Ethan didn't explain. A moment later, a text came from Finn. "Done. Go." Ethan took a breath. Into the garage. Building 4. He pulled on a hat and mask, and Jax, in the passenger seat, did the same. Leo swallowed again and picked up the walkie-talkie. Into the garage. Building 4. "Everyone get your goddamn hats and masks on. Don't make me remind you about this shit again." Ethan looked at him from the side and smiled faintly. "Boss Leo, you're getting more and more like a real boss." Leo grinned sheepishly. "It's all thanks to your teaching." A few minutes later, the 3 cars were parked under Building 4. Everyone got out, all wearing black baseball caps, black masks, and white gloves. Finn, who had gone ahead to scout, was dressed the same. At his feet lay 2 unconscious thugs. He glanced at Ethan, then led the way toward a narrow iron door behind him. The iron door looked insignificant, probably leading to a small storage room. "We're not going upstairs to rob something? What the hell is Boss Chu planning?" Leo was completely bewildered, but he waved his men forward. Bang! Bang! Finn never wasted time. He pulled out his gun and fired 2 shots at the lock, then kicked the door open. The seemingly insignificant little iron door revealed a whole new world. It wasn't a small storage room at all. It was as vast as a factory warehouse, filled with gambling tables and slot machines. It was clearly an underground casino. Leo finally understood. He excitedly motioned for his men to rush in. The air in the casino was thick with smoke due to poor ventilation. The gamblers, hearing the gunshots, froze in place. The next moment, they saw a group of masked robbers swarm in. Screams erupted throughout the casino. Gamblers scrambled, covering their heads. Leo pulled out a small pistol and fired 3 shots at a nearby slot machine. Don't panic. Shut your mouths. We're just here for the money. Everybody get on the ground with your hands on your head." Everyone instantly fell silent, obediently crouching with their hands on their heads. Leo smiled with satisfaction and waved his hand grandly. "Brothers, let's get paid." Once the situation was under control, Leo's men began brazenly stuffing cash into bags. Ethan, Finn, and Jax didn't stay idle either, searching for anything of value. By chance, the 3 of them found their way into a small room containing 2 glass display cases filled with gold and silver jewelry, likely pawned on the spot by gamblers who had lost everything. Without a second thought, Finn smashed the glass with his elbow and calmly began scooping up the contents. Jax, following his lead, raised his arm high and brought his elbow down with a dull thud. The glass remained intact. Fuck! The genius hacker was in considerable pain, clutching his arm, getting a raw taste of the quality of high-end security glass. Meanwhile, Leo, looking every bit the big boss, sat coolly at a gambling table, his eyes lingering lecherously on a beautiful female dealer crouching nearby. Every so often, he would reach out and cop a feel. Before long, the casino was completely cleaned out. Just as they were about to leave, a young woman suddenly grabbed Leo's leg, crying and begging, "Big brother, please leave me something. I'll do anything. I was counting on that money to win my capital back. My baby is only 8 months old. I need to win it back to buy him formula. You can do anything you want of me. Just give me back my money." Leo was stunned. She'd rather die than lose her money? How deep was this gambling addiction? It was hard to understand why someone who knew the games were rigged and had already lost everything would still have zero resistance to gambling. Before he could react, Finn's cookery had already chopped off one of the woman's hands. A person like that deserved no pity. Leo stared at the woman writhing and screaming on the ground, then at the severed hand, and instinctively took a few steps back. Ethan clapped him on the shoulder, and Leo finally snapped out of it. He cursed at the woman a few times, then hastily led his men away. After getting in the car, Ethan took off his mask and looked at Leo with a blank expression. I'm warning you once. It's fine to be a womanizer, but know your limits. That woman just now saw you getting handsy with the dealer, and it gave her a sliver of hope. It might seem trivial, but it proves one thing. She saw your weakness, understand? I don't want there to be a next time. Leo nodded frantically. I get it, Boss Chew. Ethan sighed. In the Vance family, aside from Victor, everyone else follows the old rules. They have a sense of propriety when it comes to women. My grandfather used to say, a beautiful face can hide a world of trouble. Those words might be blunt, but in our line of work, how many men have been brought down by a woman? You need to exercise more restraint from now on. If you have needs, go pay for it. If you like someone, go pursue her. But women of questionable character, especially those who throw themselves at you, you must never touch them. They will ruin you. Ethan's words reminded Leo of how Sky Blue had tried to frame Ethan. He swore, I understand. I will never make that mistake again. Ethan nodded and smiled faintly. How many men do you have under you now? About 70 or 80. Some are addicts, and you didn't want them, so I got rid of them. Otherwise, it would be over 100 by now. Good. Be generous. Give the brothers a bigger cut. Keep an eye out for a few reliable people to cultivate. When the money runs out, we'll rob again. In short, however brazen you need to be that brazen for me. Understood, Boss Chew. That evening, the rain began to subside. In Isabelle Thorne's master bedroom, Ethan Vance leaned against her shoulder like a docile little bird, the picture of obedience, with no trace of the hardened criminal he had been earlier in the day. Lately, it had become a habit for the two of them to watch horror movies after dinner. Ethan, shameless as ever, would use every scary scene as an excuse to get closer to Isabelle, from holding her hand to leaning against her, and a few times even theatrically clutching the beautiful woman tightly. Isabelle found it both amusing and exasperating. Gradually, she stopped resisting so much. Only when Ethan occasionally lost his sense of propriety and held her hand for too long would her psychological discomfort kick in, and she would pull her hand away, glancing at him guiltily. The torment of a mental illness is something a normal person can never truly understand. It's like those ignorant parents who, upon learning their child has depression, often dismiss it or even mock them, saying their child is too fragile, just being dramatic and recounting how kids in their day were so much tougher, so much more cheerful and healthy. But in the end, which of them doesn't end up filled with regret? Right then, a terrifying scene appeared in the movie. Ethan, as usual, hugged Isabelle, burying his head in her shoulder. Normally, they would have joked and played around for a bit, but tonight, Isabelle seemed to lack enthusiasm. The moment Ethan's head brushed against her neck, she pinched his ear and pulled him away, complaining, Ethan Vance, I'm starting to think you're just pretending to be scared to take advantage of me. Aren't you? Who says I'm scared? Ethan bluffed. A little scene like this, you think I'd be scared? Isabelle rolled her eyes. In fact, that morning in the car, she had been chatting with Benny and had accidentally learned from him that Ethan was actually a horror movie fanatic. He had seen practically every well-known horror film, and he watched them with the same placid expression as if he were watching a cartoon. But for some reason, Isabelle didn't expose him right now. She just gave his waist a sharp pinch, said nothing, and continued watching the movie. Seeing his wife seemed a little down, Ethan gently took her hand and asked softly, Izzy, what's wrong today? You seemed off ever since you got home. Isabelle looked down, hesitated, then turned to him, her eyes welling with tears. I miss my dad, she said in a choked voice. Tomorrow is his birthday. Ethan's mouth opened. He squeezed her hand and smiled gently. Tomorrow, I'll go with you to see him, okay? Isabelle nodded, her voice catching. Ethan, is life in prison like it is in the movies? The last time I saw him, he had lost so much weight. He looked so worn out. Of course not. The movies exaggerate everything. It's not that scary in real life. Don't worry. Your dad just isn't used to the food, and it's a regimented lifestyle. His body is just having a hard time adjusting. It's nothing serious. He's so old. I'm so scared. So scared he won't be able to handle it. It's okay. Victor already pulled some strings inside for him. He's not suffering. Ethan sat up straight, raised a hand to wipe the tears from Isabelle's face, and stared at her beautiful, heart-wrenching face for a moment. He asked cautiously, Izzy, can I hold you for a bit? I think you really need a hug right now. Isabelle sniffled, biting her lip, and gently leaned her head on Ethan's shoulder. Ethan held her hand with one of his, and with his other arm, he gently pulled her into his embrace. Seeing that she wasn't resisting much, he held her tighter. Coincidentally, the movie ended just then. The room was dim and so quiet you could hear a pin drop. Isabelle's cheek was pressed against Ethan's chest. She could hear his breathing grow heavier, his heartbeat quicken. The Ice Queen felt a pang of awkwardness. She tried to sit up, but Ethan held her even tighter. Ethan! Isabelle's eyes were misty as she looked up at him, her expression a mix of shyness and confusion. Izzy, Ethan said, his face serious. He took a slow breath, his tone bewitching. I really love you so much. With that, he tilted his head and slowly leaned in. Isabelle's eyes fluttered. Watching his face draw closer, she suddenly squeezed his hand tightly. Her other hand instinctively pressed against his chest, but not with the desperate resistance of before. Her body felt soft, her breath like an orchid between her red lips. In the charged atmosphere, their faces drew nearer. The hand Ethan held was squeezed tighter and tighter, as if she were at war with herself. Finally, she slowly closed her eyes, her eyelashes trembling. A wave of joy washed over Ethan. He gently pressed his lips to hers, not launching an assault, but just kissing her lightly, testing her boundaries. However, almost at the exact moment their lips touched, the phone on the nightstand rang shrilly. Isabelle snapped back to reality as if from a dream, violently pushing Ethan away. She gasped for air, too embarrassed to lift her head. Ethan was beyond frustrated. He glanced at his phone and saw it was a call for Victor. He felt like his lungs were about to explode. What? He barked in the phone. Victor, on the other end, was taken aback. What's wrong, son? Bad mood. What did I do to deserve a father like you? Ethan snapped. Hey, what did you just call me? Come on, say it again. I didn't quite hear you. Ethan. The room was so quiet that Isabelle heard every word of their exchange. The Ice Queen couldn't help but think, when it comes to being shameless, those two are two peas in a pod. Hearing no response from his son, Victor stopped teasing. Let's get to business. Come to the Red Tower. Ethan thought for a moment and sighed. Wait for me. He hung up and looked at Isabelle, wiggling his eyebrows. Honey, should we continue? Isabelle grabbed a pillow and smacked him with it repeatedly. Shameless. You're not allowed in my room ever again. Fine. Give me a kiss and I'll promise. Get out. Shameless. Ethan grinned roguishly. As Isabelle raised the pillow again, he lunged forward, stole a quick peck on her lips, and then fled the room like a thief. He peeked his head back in and said cheekily, I love you, honey. Get out. Isabelle threw the pillow at him, but he shut the door just in time. A moment later, Ethan's voice came from the living room. Honey, I might be back late. Don't wait up for me. Isabelle couldn't be bothered to reply. Fuming, she hugged the other pillow, both shy and annoyed. She muttered, annoying jerk, shameless bastard, but her expression wasn't one of true anger. She was blushing fiercely. After biting her lip, she buried her face in the pillow. After leaving, Ethan pressed the elevator button, then strode to his own apartment and knocked on the door. Benny, holding a bucket of fried chicken, opened the door and looked at his boss in confusion. Boss, why didn't you just let yourself in? Did you forget the code? Ethan's smile was as bright as the sun. He patted Benny's stomach. I have to go out. Keep an ear out. Protect your sister-in-law. Benny nodded dumbly. Seeing his boss seemed almost excessively happy, he started grinning foolishly himself. Hey, what are you smiling about? Ethan asked. Did you win Lily over? Benny instantly deflated. No, he mumbled. I took her to see Gone Girl the other day, and now she's gone. She's completely ignoring me. Ethan doubled over with laughter. You should take her to see Transformers. All right, I'm leaving. I'll teach you some moves later. Oh, Benny said, watching his boss walk to the elevator. He saw Ethan inexplicably draw an imaginary bow and aim an arrow at Isabelle's door, a move that was both cheesy and weird. The big man slapped his own forehead and muttered, Is he possessed? Jesus Christ. Half an hour later, Ethan arrived at the Red Tower. Guided by the hostess, he went to the familiar private room on the 3rd floor. Inside, Victor was deep in conversation with Deputy Mayor Tanner. Seeing Ethan enter, Victor beckoned his son over to sit beside him. Since he had met Ethan before, Tanner wasn't formal, even joking with him a bit. Ethan smiled and played along, though his heart was filled with contempt for the man. Anyone who could piss in the same pot as Mayor Cole was likely no better. Son, quick, toast mister. Tanner, congratulate him on his promotion. Victor seemed a little tipsy, handing a glass of wine to Ethan. Ethan patiently feigned a toast. Afterward, Victor and Tanner resumed their high-level conversation, talking in circles about the acquisition of the Yates family's assets. Ethan grew restless, having no idea why Victor had called him here. Just like last time, He made an excuse to slip out of the room for some air, simultaneously sending Victor a text. "If there's nothing else, I'm leaving." Victor replied, "Wait, something important to discuss." Ethan pouted, put his phone away, and strolled downstairs, planning to have a smoke in the courtyard. However, just as he reached the first-floor lobby, he happened to run into Sienna Sterling. The beautiful woman was, as always, dressed in a Chong Sam, her figure graceful and alluring. It was just like their first meeting, the same scene, the same dress, the same person. But what was different was that this time, Sienna was in the arms of an old man in his 60s. The man had an air of wealth and a stern face. By his side were several other, similarly wealthy old men, each with a beautiful woman on his arm, looking utterly carefree. A large group of bodyguards followed behind them. The old man holding Sienna walked along, leaning in to plant a firm kiss on her cheek. He whispered something in her ear that made her laugh like a string of silver bells. In the middle of her laughter, Sienna saw Ethan coming down the stairs. For an instant, the beautiful woman's smile froze, but it quickly returned to normal. She removed the old man's hand from her waist, strode forward to greet Ethan, and smiled. "Mr. Vance, you came without giving a heads up?" Ethan smiled and simply said, "Long time no see." Sienna was about to say more when the old man called out, "Sienna, let's go." Sienna replied, her expression a little unnatural. She told Ethan, "Let's talk later," and returned to the old man's side. He casually slapped her on the rear and, still laughing and talking, headed for the elevator. Ethan felt a pang of sympathy for Sienna and sighed softly. About 10 minutes later, a text came from Victor. "Come to the room." Ethan returned to the private room. Deputy Mayor Tanner was gone. He got straight to the point. "What is it?" Victor took a sip of tea, his expression somewhat grave. "Everett Yates has escaped from the detention center. The police have already issued a warrant for his arrest." The time was 4:00 p.m. When Chase arrived at the home of Everett Yates's mistress. Two of Harrison's bodyguards were already waiting outside the residential complex. They said Harrison was worried he couldn't handle it alone and had sent them to help, to speed things up. Chase said nothing, but he was furious. The three of them disguised themselves as internet repairmen. After disabling the network to the mistress's home, they easily gained entry and then effortlessly took out several bodyguards. Chase could see that the two men Harrison sent were highly skilled, not ordinary people. But he had never seen them before, including the bodyguards at the meatpacking plant today. He had thought he and Harrison were like brothers, but now he realized his so-called brother had been guarding against him all along. Annoyed and chilled to the bone, Chase felt the distinct sensation of accompanying a ruler being like accompanying a tiger. After forcing the woman to sign the contract, the three of them cleanly dispatched her. Of course, the usurping cousin wasn't spared either. After everything was done, one bodyguard stayed behind to clean up, while the other acted as Chase's driver, and they went to the detention center together. When Everett Yates saw the photos of his mistress and cousin, dead, he was first stunned, then took a deep breath and said through gritted teeth, "Thanks." Chase got straight to the point. "What I told you before, have you considered it?" Everett gave a bitter smile. "I've ended up in this state all thanks to Victor Vance. I only regret that I'm trapped in here and can't get my revenge personally. Since you want to take him down, I'm of course happy to contribute. But I have a condition." "Name it." "I have no family left now, but those old board members are my sworn brothers. In your fight with Victor Vance, don't drag them into it. And you must give them enough money so they can retire in peace, including the ones who betrayed me. I know Victor must have used dirty tricks. I don't blame them." "You can rest assured on that point," Chase said. "The acquisition contract states it clearly. They'll be paid according to the company's current value. It's not a small amount." Current value? You're fighting over this fat prize just for the money? We're all adults here. I won't spell out for you." Chase was silent for a moment. Then his thin lips moved. "At most, we can give each of them a $5 million bonus. As a favor to you. If you ask for more, you'll be crossing a line." $5 million, in the eyes of those old board members, was no different from tossing scraps to a beggar. But in his current situation, Everett had no room to bargain. It was better than nothing, better than letting Victor Vance win. If that happened, his old brothers might not even get their retirement money. And even if they did, it was uncertain if they'd live to spend it. "So be it." Everett sighed. "I hope you won't let me down." "We won't," Chase promised. "Since you agree, then give your old brothers a heads up and have them sign the contracts. Your mistress's signature alone isn't enough." Everett's expression was grim. He nodded. "You can go back first. I'll talk to them. Tomorrow morning, you can go find them to sign." Chase hesitated for a moment, thinking it wasn't wise to push further. He agreed. "All right, then it's settled. I'll go directly to Triumph headquarters tomorrow. A pleasure doing business with you, Mr. Yates. Watching Chase leave, Everett's mind replayed the images of his mistress and cousin's deaths. He rose silently and was led back to his cell block. A fierce, dark look suddenly filled his eyes. He slammed a fist against the wall and cursed furiously. Back in the present, at the Red Tower. Upon hearing of Everett Yates's escape, Ethan was astonished. He's got some serious skills, breaking out a place like that. In the evening, several of Triumph's old board members met with him. Victor said grimly. Around 8:30 p.m., he had a sudden heart attack. On the way to the hospital, his men hijacked the transport. They also killed 2 guards. Hijacking a prison transport was a common movie trope, where killing guards seemed like child's play. But in reality, it was an incredibly difficult feat. Even if one succeeded, it would immediately draw a massive official response, with dire consequences. Everett was old, and the fall of Triumph was already a foregone conclusion. Instead of taking such a huge risk, it would have been more prudent to wait until he was in prison and out of the media spotlight, then find a way to get his sentence reduced. That old mad dog, this is a do-or-die move. He's burning his bridges to get revenge. Ethan mused. No, that's not right. If he had this kind of guts, why didn't he act sooner? You've already swallowed up half of Triumph. What do you do now that he's out? Is it really just for revenge? If he were that simple-minded, how could he have built such an empire from scratch? I find it strange, too. Very strange, Victor frowned. I know Everett Yates too well. He wouldn't do something this impulsive. It seems he was provoked by something. Harrison's man also met with him this afternoon. Harrison's man? Ethan paused, then said thoughtfully, what could he have said to provoke Everett like that? That's what I can't figure out, Victor said. If he wanted revenge, he would have chosen to endure. After he was sentenced, his old brothers would surely have found ways to help reduce his sentence. He would have been out in a year or two. Although Triumph will be gone by then, don't forget, he was once a famous crime boss. He has plenty of loyal dogs. Getting revenge on us then would be much better than risking an escape now and drawing all this attention, right? With his escape, everyone connected to him will be monitored by the police. It'll be inconvenient to do anything. I don't know what he's thinking. We should have just killed that old bastard from the start, Ethan said darkly. If it were that easy, I wouldn't have taken such a roundabout way to put him in prison, Victor said with a faint smile. My original plan was to do everything possible to prevent him from getting a reduced sentence, let him rot in prison for 10 or 8 years. By the time he got out, the world would have changed. Forget worrying about his revenge. Taking his life then would have been as easy as pie. For a moment, neither father nor son could figure out this sudden turn of events, but one thing was certain. Everett Yates would definitely seek revenge. Do you think he plans to flee overseas first, build up his strength, and then come back to kill us? Ethan asked. His men and money are all in this country, Victor replied. And people's hearts are not what they used to be. As soon as he got into trouble, several of his board members wanted to replace him and take over Triumph for themselves. But now, I have them firmly in my grasp, and they're very obedient. The remaining few are still loyal to Everett, but to launder Triumph's money overseas for him to use, they can't do it without unanimous vote from all the directors. As he said this, Victor's brow suddenly furrowed, his eyes filled with a complex expression. He muttered, that old bastard. I think I've been tricked by him. Ethan was baffled. Victor, with no time to explain, quickly made a phone call. Where are Everett Yates's mistress and her lover now? The person on the other end replied, it's been raining heavily today. They haven't left the house. They're home. A bad feeling washed over Victor. Are you sure? Positive. I've been watching them all day. Nothing unusual. Oh, this afternoon, it seems their internet went down. They called 3 repairmen over. Other than that, nothing happened. Victor's brow furrowed even deeper. Go check on them. He hung up, and Ethan asked, what's wrong? Victor's face was grim. Triumph's core company is its subsidiary, Triumph Investments. On paper, this investment company isn't valued very highly, but behind the scenes, it has shadow contracts with many of the companies it invests in, giving it a much higher actual stake. It's a way to evade taxes while also holding the lifelines of many small and medium-sized enterprises. The profits are immeasurable. Ethan thought for a moment and smiled faintly. No wonder you gave up the overseas project my grandfather gave you, and chose to go head-to-head with Everett Yates. Heh, stirring up a fight between the first and second branches just to free up your hands to deal with him? If you can take over this company, you'll probably double the number of lackeys you have in Port Sterling's business world, won't you? And with their lifelines in your hands, they'll be unwaveringly loyal to you. Victor didn't deny it. He continued, the president of Triumph Investments is Everett's mistress, and his cousin is the chief accountant. The two of them have actually been having an affair for years. Now that Everett is in trouble, they've become even more brazen, secretly cashing out behind the other directors' backs. To date, they've laundered about $1 billion. I spoke with them a while ago, promised them a large sum of money if they signed the acquisition contract and did as I said. I told them I'd find another way to deal with the remaining directors. They agreed readily and signed a contract on the spot. But now something feels wrong. Ethan was thoughtful. You suspect they never betrayed Everett, but were actually helping him launder money, planning for the future? It's possible, Victor said. Everett is in prison, and his board is now split into two factions. Even if he gets out now, as a fugitive, he can't openly run things. Taking the money and fleeing overseas is his only option. Ethan found that hard to believe. You said Everett's mistress and cousin have been sleeping together for years. Could he have foreseen his own imprisonment and planned this far ahead? Besides, with his net worth, would he be content with just taking $1 billion? As he finished, father and son looked at each other, apparently having arrived at the same conclusion. If his mistress and cousin truly didn't betray him, Ethan said, then there's only one explanation. Everett was also guarding against his own old brothers. Just then, Victor's phone rang. Mr. Vance, it's bad. I just knocked, and no one answered, so I picked the lock and went in. I searched upstairs and downstairs. Get to the point. I just found their bodies in the freezer. It must have been those three. Before he could finish, Victor hung up. He closed his eyes tightly and said grimly, I've figured it out. I've figured out why Everett Yates would risk escaping. They're dead, Ethan asked. Victor nodded. It must have been Harrison. That little bastard, he didn't want that pair to be used by me. So he acted too hastily and pushed Everett over the edge. Just then, the phone rang again. Victor saw it was an unknown number, frowned slightly, and answered. Old friend, how have you been lately? Hith. It was Everett Yates. Victor wasn't surprised. He sneered, how filial of you. You get out, and you still know to call your daddy to report the good news. Hith. I'm doing great. This fat piece of meat that is Triumph is delicious, so rich it's dripping. Old Vic, you've made my life miserable. Everett gritted out. I'm giving you a heads up. Wash your neck and wait for me. Oh, and don't forget to remind that great nephew of yours. Do you really think I don't know how Travis died? Hith. Both of you will pay with your lives. Fine, but you'd better hurry up. Don't get caught by the police again in a couple of days. You killed a guard. Not even God can save you now. The voice on the other end snorted coldly and hung up. At that moment, Everett Yates was on a luxury yacht, having just taken a comfortable shower and changed his clothes. After calling Victor, he turned to the few old brothers kneeling before him, his expression dark and vicious. Brothers who have shared life and death for decades, and in the end, you want to see me dead. Have you forgotten who led you out of that dead-end town? If it weren't for me, Everett Yates, you'd all still be chopping wood and herding sheep. One of the directors gritted his teeth and looked up at Everett. Old Yates, Victor Vance, threatened my family. I had no choice. Agreeing to work for him was just a stalling tactic. I've been trying to find a way to help you, pulling strings. Don't you dare use Victor Vance as an excuse. Everett roared. Starting 5 years ago, you teamed up with these guys, trying to kick me off the board, didn't you? Oof. Doing everything you could to get your hands on Triumph investments, spouting that nonsense about how you're the ones I trust most, and the core company should be under your full control. Do you take me for a fool? Caught. The director first panicked, then, as if accepting his fate, became defiant. He glared at Everett and shouted, You were our leader, but you always guarded against us like we were thieves. The core company of the corporation, you'd rather give it to some slut than let us touch it. Do you? Do you know how much you broke your brother's hearts? Triumph is mine. Everett yelled. What I give you, you take. What I don't give you, don't even think about it. Everett lit a cigarette, took a couple of deep breaths, and then sneered. For the sake of our brotherhood, I'll let you die knowing the truth today. The slut you speak of is not my mistress. She is my half-sister. And my cousin, he's not actually my cousin. He's my brother-in-law. Years ago, I placed them in the company precisely to guard against you. You want to rebel? Look at yourselves. Do you have the guts? In this world, most relationships can only endure hardship together, not share success. He thought back to their youth, when they were always hungry. Even when they were about to faint from starvation, if they managed to beg for a piece of bread, they would split it, and no one would take it all for themselves. But now, each of them was wealthy beyond measure, and each was so full of ambition. Such was the tragedy of human nature. Everett Yates, showing no regard for their old bonds, dealt with the directors who had betrayed him. Then, he turned to his remaining old brothers. Actually, I had planned to escape from the beginning. After all, with Victor Vance around, I would never have a chance at a reduced sentence. So, I thought I'd wait for my little sister to launder all the money from the investment company, then break out, get my revenge, and go live abroad. I know you all have been loyal to me, but over the years, you've lined your own pockets from the company, taking a good chunk of money, haven't you? Out of respect for our brotherhood, I always turn a blind eye, let slide. But now, that little bastard Harrison Vance has killed my sister and her husband. The rest of my money can't be laundered out for a while, so I had to move up the plan. The remaining directors understood. Everett was asking them for money. Help me out, brothers. Each of you chip in $1 billion for me. That's not too much to ask, is it? Everett smiled faintly, his gaze sweeping over each of their faces. The old brothers looked at each other for a moment. It's not difficult. We'll go back and gather the money right away and launder it out for you as soon as possible. Call your people and have them do it, Everett said in a tone that brooked no refusal. You'll all stay on the boat for the next couple of days. Even if you go home, the police will just invite you for tea. You might as well stay here with me, play some cards, have a drink. The men exchanged glances again, a hint of resistance in their eyes. But looking at the dozen or so hitmen on the boat, they had no choice but to agree. At the same time, at Harrison Vance's home, the eldest son and grandson of the Vance family stood before a massive fish tank, watching his shark feed, his face expressionless. Chase was sprawled on the living room sofa, idly fiddling with the new phone Harrison had given him. After a moment, Harrison slowly walked over, lit a cigarette, and sat down beside him, smiling faintly. Still angry at me, Chase glanced up but didn't respond. Can you not be so petty? Should I apologize to you? Harrison, what do you mean by this? Huh? Chase said irritably. You send me to kill Everett Yates's mistress, then you send people to watch me? Now, you give me a new phone? What? You think I'm the ghost? You could just kill me directly. Why go through all this trouble? Don't mistake my caution for malice, Harrison said, flicking his ash. I sent people to help you, to save you some time. As for the phone, you've had yours for years. Besides, after clearing out so many moles, can you guarantee they never touched your phone, never did anything to it? Chase rolled his eyes, then changed the subject. Everett Yates is out now. What's your next move? Harrison took a deep drag from his cigarette, fell silent for a moment, and then said, That old dog, he tricked all of us. I just figured it out. His mistress and cousin, they probably had different identities. At the very least, they were the people laundering his money, people he trusted deeply. Chase sighed. A miscalculation, wasn't it? We shouldn't have been in such a hurry to kill them. We could have waited until we got the signatures from Triumph's board tomorrow, then killed them. You think Everett would have agreed to our terms if that pair hadn't died? Harrison countered. He agreed to your terms today because he knew we had cut off his escape route. He was only pretending to comply. In reality, a corner dog will jump over the wall. He was about to make a desperate move. Chase didn't understand. He pouted. I don't know why Everett escaped, but you should be careful lately. Now that he's out, he's definitely coming for revenge. What if, and I'm just saying what if, he finds out Travis died at your hands? He's a corner dog now, a bona fide desperado. We do need to be careful, Harrison said. But whether he comes looking for me or not, he will definitely go see my uncle to catch up. Hiv. Chase smacked his lips. True. It seems his escape is actually a good thing. At least, Victor and his son probably won't be sleeping well for the next few days. At the Red Tower, after receiving Everett Yates's call, Victor's face grew even darker. It wasn't that he feared revenge, but he mourned his recent hard work. He had just managed to win over those board members, and now they were likely ghosts under Everett's gun. Ethan was also frustrated. The celestial axis was already giving him a headache, and now there was Everett Yates. He sighed. Be careful these next few days. We need to find him as soon as possible. Victor thought for a moment. Based on what I know of him, he probably won't act rashly. Right now, the police are putting pressure on him, and Triumph is in pieces. He'll probably try to take the money and run first, build up his strength for a few years, and then come back for revenge. That's more in line with his character. But we should still be careful. If he really does plan to continue his desperate charge, he'll make a move in the next few days. The longer he waits, the greater the chance that either the police or we will find him, which only works against him. All right, I'll head back then, Ethan said, standing up. You could have just called and told me this, making me run all the way over here at night. Honestly, Victor's expression softened a little. I wanted you to spend more time with Deputy Mayor Tanner. He's taking over Mayor Cole's position now. In the future, we'll need him for many things. I can't be the one to deal with him for everything, can I? You should also learn how to handle the authorities. Don't always find excuses to sneak out. Ethan scoffed. I told you, I'm not interested in the Vance family business. And I'm even less interested in the so-called political culture. In the future, don't drag me into this with them. It honestly makes me sick. He said this, but in reality, Ethan had no intention of staying in the country long-term. Ingratiating himself with these connections was useless to him. If he needed certain connections to investigate the celestial axis, he could just use Victor. Why go through all the trouble? Fine, fine. Have it your way. Victor readily agreed, then smiled. You've been drinking? Let my driver take you. I'll stay a bit longer. Ethan didn't refuse. He took 2 steps toward the door, then stopped abruptly, turning to look at his old man with a strange expression. What are you staying for? Want to go to the top floor for a good night's sleep? Does your membership card not get you up there? Need me to give you my red card? Victor smacked his lips. You little brat. I'm your father, after all. Show some respect. Ethan laughed mockingly and muttered, shameless old goat. Sooner or later that thing's gonna fall off. Victor. Ethan glared at him, then strode out of the room. As he closed the door, he didn't forget to add, pace yourself. At your age, you're not afraid of dropping dead in there. He shut the door and went down the stairs to the first-floor lobby. By sheer coincidence, he ran into Sienna Sterling again. At the lobby entrance, the old man holding Sienna tightly was about 70% drunk. Though in his 60s, he was in excellent spirits, his clothes elegant yet luxurious, highlighting his distinguished aura. This man was Jonathan Croft, the president of the Port's Sterling Chamber of Commerce, hailed by the media as the godfather of the city's business world. But he dared not claim the title of undisputed king. After all, the old patriarch at Phoenix Crest Manor was not yet dead, and Croft wouldn't dare accept such a weighty title, even if he had 8 times the nerve. Gentlemen, take care. I won't see you out, Croft said, smiling and waving. The 3 old men who had already stepped outside were equally tipsy, each with his own canary on his arm. They bid farewell. Mr. Croft, you're too kind. Please go back inside, it's windy out here. Yes, Mr. Croft, go back to your room. I see Miss Sterling looks a bit tired, too. You two should rest early. I'm afraid Miss Sterling won't be in the mood for sleep tonight. Will she? Ha ha. Sienna maintained a perfectly calibrated smile, polite but not distant, charming but not slutty. She joked, I'm not tired at all. I just don't know if my old Croft here can still perform. She turned her face to look at Croft, who was holding her, but her gaze inadvertently fell on Ethan, who was coming down the stairs. Sienna's body stiffened for a moment, but her smile remained enchantingly seductive. She stared at Croft's face and said coquettishly, Well, tell me, can you perform or not? Croft laughed magnanimously. Whether I can perform or not, don't you know by now? The other 3 old men chimed in, Mr. Croft, you'd better perform well tonight. Ha ha! Victor Vance had once said, high society is mostly made up of lowlifes who are best at using their high-class status to do low-class things. These old bastards were the living embodiment of that statement. Sienna, without batting an eye, removed Croft's hand from her waist, joked with the men for a few more moments, and then walked toward Ethan. Leaving? Ethan nodded. Yeah, want to wait for me for a moment? Have a chat? Sienna smiled. I haven't seen you in a while. Ethan glanced at Croft and smiled faintly. Some other time. I have to get home to my wife. Sienna shrugged. All right. She paused, then added, the celestial axis you mentioned. I've been looking into it, but still no leads. Give me a little more time. Yeah, Ethan said. Actually, if it's not convenient for you, just forget it. I really don't want to get you involved. Sienna tilted her head playfully. I'm willing. It's my own damn fault, all right? A sincere look filled Ethan's eyes. Thank you. Just then, Croft, having seen off his guests, walked toward the elevator, calling out, Sienna, come on, help me. Sienna replied, her expression a little unnatural. For some reason, she said to Ethan, he's the president of the Port's Sterling Chamber of Commerce. The beautiful woman seemed to want to explain something, or perhaps prove something, but she didn't continue. A hint of embarrassment colored her eyes. She lowered her head. Get home safe, big brother Ethan. Ethan didn't know what to say. He nodded lightly and walked toward the entrance. A question nagged at him. He had always thought the person behind Sienna was the owner of the Red Tower. Victor had said the owner was a powerful political figure, but this Croft was clearly a businessman. It seemed Sienna hadn't managed to latch onto the real boss of the Red Tower after all. So what was Croft's relationship with the place? Ethan was confused, but too tired to think about it. He quickened his pace and left the lobby. Sienna helped Croft into the elevator and up to the top floor. After entering the room, Croft took off his jacket and handed it to her. She pursed her lips, stared at him for a moment, then took the jacket and hung it up, her expression slowly turning grim. Croft walked into the living room, sat on the sofa, and let out a drunken burp. He fumbled for a cigarette and said, Sienna, Give me an ashtray. Sienna took a breath, her face growing even darker. She picked up the large, heavy glass ashtray from the side table, not with two hands and a gesture of respect, but with her fingertips hooked inside, holding it with one hand. Mr. Croft, has your drunkenness not worn off yet? Hearing her icy words, Croft shuddered. He whipped his head around, his eyes wide, just as the ashtray came crashing down on his face. Sober now. Sienna's eyes were vicious, her knuckles white from gripping the ashtray so tightly. Croft clutched his bleeding head and scrambled off the sofa, curling into a ball at her feet. His voice trembled. So sober. Miss Sterling. Before he could finish, Sienna raised the ashtray again and slammed it down. Luckily, Croft, who had been so revered moments ago, but was now lower than a dog, had kept his hands over his head. The ashtray only hit the back of his hand, not dealing a fatal blow, but he still screamed in pain. Sienna's face was furious, her tone frigid. You old bastard, if you ever dare to touch me casually again, I'll kill your entire family. Croft begged for mercy, his eyes filled with terror as he looked at Sienna. This woman in the Chong Sam, once just his canary. But now, the canary had flown up the branch and become a phoenix. He had even played a part in her meteoric rise. Croft, who had prided himself on being a connoisseur of women, had never imagined that the downtrodden woman he met on a rainy night wasn't just after his money, but his connections, using him as a stepping stone. Miss Sterling, didn't we agree that we should act intimately in front of others? I. The gentleman only wanted people to think you were him. He didn't say you could replace him. You old fool, you'd better not get too into character. I know it. I won't drink so much in the future, so I won't. Won't cross the line. Sienna took a deep breath, glared at Croft, and tossed the ashtray onto the floor before storming out. If it hadn't been for Ethan's sudden appearance, how could she have lost control like that? After returning to her own room, Sienna lit a slim cigarette. Halfway through, she called Ruffa. Sienna, are you done with it? Sienna hummed in agreement, then suddenly started sobbing. Just finished. What's wrong? Did that Croft fellow make you angry again? Sienna sobbed. No, I just feel so wronged. You put me here in a red tower, but you don't come back often, leaving me to handle so many things by myself. How can I not feel wrong? All right, Ruffing said. Special times call for special measures. As soon as my old nemesis from the Federal Task Force leaves Port Sterling, I'll come back and be with you every day, okay? Don't come back. I don't want to see you ever again. Sienna complained. Ruffing sighed. It seems that Croft really did make you angry. Sienna, just bear with it for a little longer. Teach him a lesson. That's fine, but don't kill him. That task force leader has a blood feud with me. He's been trying to track me down for years. There are many rumors in Port Sterling that the master of this Red Tower is a high-ranking official who retired from the capital. He must have heard something, which is why he volunteered to come here. But for now, he probably isn't sure that I'm a master of the Red Tower. This Croft fellow, he happened to be an official in the capital in his middle age, and now he's the president of the Chamber of Commerce. He fits the rumor perfectly, so he's the perfect stand-in. I promise you, as soon as the task force leaves Port Sterling, I won't let him live, okay? Sienna sobbed. I couldn't care less about him. I just miss you a little. All right, I'll come back and see you in a couple of days. Be good, okay? You old liar. You never keep your promises. This time I promise. I will. Oof. Then you have to tell me in advance. I'll come pick you up at the airport. I'm tired, so that's all for now. Good night. After hanging up, Sienna's sobs stopped abruptly. She took a graceful drag from her cigarette. The tears in the corners of her eyes reflected a cunning light. The next morning, Ethan Vance followed his routine. He fried eggs, warmed milk, and watched with a doting expression as Isabelle Thorne finished her breakfast. Then, he had Benny drive her to Elysia Media. After getting in the car, Isabelle was surprised to see Lily sitting in the passenger seat. When Isabelle had sprained her ankle, Lily had come to care for her, and the big bodyguard had found endless excuses to strike up conversations with the young maid. Benny had been her driver for a while now, and in their occasional chats, she'd asked him if he liked Lily. He had denied it profusely, but his honest, earnest face was incapable of deceit. Seeing them together now, Isabelle didn't overthink it, simply giving Benny an encouraging glance. Ethan, meanwhile, notified Finn to take Leo Bishop hunting for the day. He himself drove to Phoenix Crest Manor to discuss Everett Yates with his father, Victor. Father and son hadn't been talking for long when, unexpectedly, Harrison Vance arrived to see Victor as well. There were no false pleasantries between uncle and nephew. The moment he entered, Harrison got straight to the point. Uncle, it seems I've caused you some trouble. I came specifically to apologize. With that, He looked over at Ethan and smiled faintly. Ethan, you're here, too. Ethan gave a non-committal grunt, his eyes flicking to Chase, who stood silently at Harrison's side. Victor's lips curled into a half-smile. Harrison, my boy, the first shot you fire after coming out of seclusion, and you aim it directly at me? Yeah, I suppose it makes sense. Ever since you were a child, you've had the habit of eating what you dislike first, saving the best for last. A good habit, a very good habit. You misunderstand, Uncle. Believe it or not, I have no intention of declaring war on you. I only wish to temporarily balance the power between the three branches, Harrison said, seating himself without an invitation. He smiled coolly. If your branch becomes too dominant, the first and second branches will have no room to breathe. Everything I'm doing is for the good of the Vance dynasty. Victor chuckled, then glanced at Ethan and let out a soft sigh. Look at the son of the first branch, he thought. Every other word is about the family dynasty. But my own son, he couldn't care less about it. I'm afraid that if I managed to seize control of the entire dynasty, he wouldn't even take it if I handed it to him on a silver platter. A flicker of melancholy crossed Victor's face. He took a breath. Harrison, can you give me a straight answer? Your return. Was it grandfather's idea? Harrison blinked, offering a non-answer. I just don't want to see the Vance family fall apart. Victor smiled. And the second branch? What are your plans for them? I've let her have the overseas projects, Harrison said. It's more than enough for her family to live lavishly. When the time is right, I'll persuade her to move abroad. Grandfather's idea? Victor pressed. Harrison remained silent for a moment, neither confirming nor denying. He only said, I ask that you show some mercy, Uncle. Leave her way out. We are, after all, family. Victor's expression was unreadable. If she behaves and moves abroad, I naturally won't dredge up the past. I might even sponsor her travel expenses. I'm just afraid she won't listen to reason. I'll find a way, Harrison promised, then shifted gears. For now, I think we should discuss how to find Everett Yates. I've already sent my people to investigate, Victor said, smacking his lips thoughtfully. Harrison, you're decisive and a brilliant strategist, but you're still too young. That afternoon, with no news from Victor's men, Ethan checked the time and drove to Elysian Media to pick up Isabelle. They had agreed the night before to visit Arthur Thorne in prison. Isabelle had been slammed since the moment she'd arrived at the office. Having just sent off a major client, she was now wolfing down a fast food container Wendy had bought for her. As Wendy tidied the signed contracts on the desk, she kept stealing glances at Isabelle, who was eating with little regard for appearances. A pang of pity, even compassion, filled her eyes. That damn playboy boss of hers was never around, leaving Ms. Thorne to do everything. Didn't he have any pity for his own wife? Just as she was thinking this, Ethan pushed the door open. Wendy froze, then quickly greeted him before gathering the contracts and heading to the admin department to file them. Isabelle swallowed a mouthful of rice and looked up at Ethan. Didn't I tell you to wait for me downstairs? Ethan glanced at the departing Wendy, then sauntered over to Isabelle with a roguish grin. I miss my wife. Isabelle rolled her eyes and didn't reply, finishing her meal in a few quick bites. After touching up her makeup, she went downstairs with Ethan, and they drove to the correctional facility. The Arthur Thorne of today was a shadow of his former self. The leonine strength was gone, replaced by the stooped posture and poor complexion of an old man. His once sharp, commanding gaze was now dim and lifeless. He had lost a significant amount of weight. Though Victor had pulled strings to ensure the guards treated him well, and he ate and slept decently, the confinement itself was a form of spiritual torture. Separated by the glass partition, father and daughter picked up the phones. They had barely exchanged 2 sentences before Isabelle's eyes welled up with tears. She didn't want her father to see her cry, but looking at the only family she had in the world, now gaunt and withered, her heart felt as if it were being sliced apart. She couldn't hold it back. Ethan silently comforted his wife. After Isabelle and Arthur had spoken for a while, he joined the conversation. Dad, you need a rest. Look at those dark circles. Dad, is the food not to your liking? I'll have Victor see what he can do. Dad, you don't have to worry. I'm here for Izzy. Dad. As the calls of Dad grew more frequent and natural, Isabelle broke into a teary smile. Are you trying to take advantage of my father now, too? You're shameless. We're legally married. Your dad is my dad. How is that taking advantage? Isn't that right, Dad? See? Dad's smiling. Arthur Thorne looked at his daughter and son-in-law with a gentle smile, a great sense of comfort washing over him. He had initially arranged for Isabelle to marry into the Vance family only to protect her, never daring to hope that a real connection would blossom. But now, it seemed this fake son-in-law wanted to become a real one. But then, He remembered his daughter's psychological illness, and his expression became a mixture of complex emotions. After cheering Isabelle up, Ethan cracked a few more jokes, then whispered in her ear, "Izzy, could you wait for me in the car? I have a few things I need to say to our dad." Isabelle was suspicious. "What do you need to say?" Ethan smiled mysteriously. "It's a secret. Go on, be good. It'll only be a few minutes." Seeing the determination in his eyes, Isabelle didn't refuse. She said goodbye to her father and returned to the car. Arthur looked on, puzzled, wondering what this troublemaker had to say to him now. The last time Ethan had visited, Arthur hadn't been able to sleep well for 10 days. "Dad, just giving you a heads up," Ethan said into the phone, getting straight to the point. "I've grown quite fond of that girl, Lily. I'm keeping her. I hope you don't mind." Arthur paused, then nodded with a smile. Good, good. Victor already gave me the warning. That girl has had a hard life. She'll have a better future with you." "Excellent. You're a great father-in-law." A true father-in-law. Arthur was speechless. Does this troublemaker always talk like this? Ethan chuckled, then continued. "Dad, there's something else I'm curious about. Are there any other Lilies around Isabelle?" Without a second's thought, Arthur shook his head. Ethan stared into his eyes, a faint, knowing smile playing on his lips. On the way back, Isabelle was burning with curiosity. "What on earth did you say to my dad?" she finally asked. "I made a vow." Isabelle was baffled. "When you get married, you're supposed to make a vow to your father-in-law, right? I was just making up for lost time. I swore a vow so epic, if I break it, I'll be asking for a direct meeting with a bolt of lightning." Isabelle stared at him. "Our dad said we should live a happy life together, and that I should love you, spoil you, and tolerate you more." "My dad would never say that." "I'm not lying. He said it himself. I didn't change a word." "That doesn't sound like my dad. Our dad also said we should have a baby soon." "Our dad." The beautiful woman, realizing she was being led astray, glared at Ethan and muttered, "Shameless." Ethan was grinning from ear to ear. "Honey," he said suddenly, "can I have a kiss?" Isabelle's eyes went wide. She gave his side a vicious pinch. "Are you crazy? You lecherous jerk." Ethan feigned injury. "But we were kissing just fine last night. Are you not going to take responsibility for your actions? You still have the nerve to bring that up? Fine, fine. Then we'll kiss tonight. Go to hell. Don't you dare come into my room tonight, you pig." "All right, then we'll kiss tomorrow night." Isabelle was speechless. Back at home, after another round of playful bickering, Isabelle watched as Ethan expertly made his way into the kitchen. She paused, then followed him in, a hint of shyness on her face. "Tonight, I'm cooking." Ethan was visibly startled. "Huh? Are you sure?" Isabelle pouted and snatched the apron from his hands. "Get out. Don't distract me." Ethan's heart swelled with happiness. He was just about to say something sweet when the doorbell rang. "I'll get it," he said, walking out of the kitchen to open the door. Surprise! The moment the door opened, a bouquet of flowers was thrust in his face. Dr. Zoe Russell and her flamboyant friend Leo stood at the door, the former holding the flowers, the latter a case of beer and a large bag of takeout. When they saw it was Ethan, the expressions on both their faces froze solid. Ethan glanced at Leo, then turned his gaze to the mischievous Dr. Russell. He smirked. "A surprise? Translate for me. What kind of surprise?" Zoe gave a stiff smile. "Bro, brother-in-law, you're here too. Oh well, today is Uncle Arthur's birthday. We were worried Isabelle would be feeling down, so we thought we'd come keep her company." Leo, pinching his fingers together in a delicate gesture, added in a soft, timid voice, "Yes, yes, if we'd known you were here, brother-in-law, we wouldn't have come to bother you." His wife was finally making him a meal. There was no way Ethan was letting these two clowns ruin it. He was about to invent an excuse to send them away when Isabelle hurried over. "What are you two doing here?" "Ethan, let them in." "Oh, right. Come on in." Ethan gestured, his face arranged in a mask of welcome, but his eyes were filled with warning. Zoe swallowed hard. Seeing Isabelle still wearing an apron, she looked even more incredulous. After a moment of stunned silence, she forced a smile and handed the flowers to Isabelle. "Izzy, I just remembered I have something I need to do, so I won't come in." Leo chimed in. "Me too. I just got back to Port Sterling this afternoon and haven't even had dinner with my family yet. So, I won't come in either." Isabelle was exasperated. She weighed her options. She'd been eating Ethan's cooking for a while now. Since she promised to cook tonight, it wouldn't be right to disappoint him. "All right, then let's have dinner together tomorrow night," she said. "Leo, you didn't even tell me you were back. You're a great friend, you know that. I wanted to surprise you." Leo said with a laugh. "We'll get going then." "Okay, see you tomorrow night," Isabelle conceded. Zoe waved goodbye, then looked at Ethan, summoning the courage to give him a warning glare. Ethan just raised an eyebrow, saying nothing. Just then, Finn, having finished his task, returned. He was carrying a bag of ribs Ethan had asked him to pick up. The elevator doors opened, and he came face to face with Zoe. Oh! Zoe's eyes instantly lit up. Finn, where the hell have you been the last 2 days? Why haven't you been answering my calls? Huh? Finn was silent. Zoe looked down at the ribs in his hand and frowned, as if she'd discovered something terrible. Finn, you dismembered a small animal. No, this won't do. Your psychological condition is getting worse. You're coming with me. I need to treat you immediately. With that, she grabbed his arm. Finn muttered, "Is she crazy woman?" Ethan couldn't hold back his laughter. He took the ribs from Finn's hand, suppressing a grin. Go on, Finn. Go get treated. You can't delay something like this. Finn was speechless. By the time the treatment at the clinic was over, it was already 8 in the evening. Although Zoe was mostly using her profession as an excuse to see him, she couldn't help but feel a little disappointed when she saw no signs of improvement in Finn's condition. Finn, I'm such a failure, she said, disheartened. Finn blinked calmly. It's not your fault. I wasn't expecting much anyway. Zoe looked at him pitifully. Then buy me dinner. To soothe my wounded heart. Finn said nothing. They ended up at the same Korean restaurant they'd been at twice before. After dinner, Zoe shamelessly demanded he walk her home. There's a flasher who's been showing up in this area recently. I ran into him the other night. It scared me to death. You trying to act cute is kind of disgusting. Would it kill you to walk me home? It's late. I'm genuinely scared. Finn glanced at her, about to speak, when he suddenly sensed a pair of eyes watching him from a dark corner in the distance. A trained operative's intuition was always sharp. He looked up, and a figure instantly vanished around the corner. Finn's first thought was the celestial axis. After all, besides them, no one knew the extent of his and his brother's skills, and no one else would be tailing him. Thinking fast, he pulled out his phone, calling Ethan as he broke into a run, chasing the figure around the corner. Zoe was bewildered. Are you insane? You damn K-drama reject. If you don't want to walk me home, just say so. Why are you running? Back at Isabelle's apartment, Ethan sat at the dining table, staring in stunned silence at the 3 dishes and 1 soup his wife had spent hours preparing. I haven't cooked in a long time. My skills are a little rusty, Isabelle said sheepishly. The ribs? I added too much sugar, so they're a bit dark. The others should be fine. Why don't you try them? Ethan lifted his gaze to look at her, then pointed at the plate of blackened things in front of him, which God himself couldn't have identified. Ribs? He asked in disbelief. Just eat the other dishes. I'll throw the ribs out later. Ethan waved his hand, forcing a smile. My wife made this with her own hands. How could I not eat it? He braced himself, picked up a piece with his chopsticks, and slowly brought it to his mouth. How is it? Isabelle asked, her eyes full of hope. It doesn't look great, but it should taste okay, right? Ethan maintained his smile as best he could, forcing himself to swallow the bitter-tasting rib. He quickly ladled half a bowl of soup to rinse his mouth out, but, Izzy, he said, his face a mask of seriousness. Was there an old man selling salt downstairs who was just murdered? Did you do it? Isabelle didn't understand at first. Then it hit her. It's salty? She asked, mortified. Ethan's brow furrowed. This isn't salty, this is a salt lick. Honey, from now on, I'll do the cooking. If it makes you feel better, you can wash the dishes. But please, don't go down the criminal path of murdering your husband. Isabelle pouted and mumbled. I tasted it and thought it was a bit bland, so I added more salt. Forget it. I'll eat it myself. You can order takeout. Just then, Finn called. Boss, I'm being followed. Ethan's expression didn't change. Where? Near Dr. Russell's clinic. I think it's the celestial axis. I'm in pursuit. You need to be careful, too. Yeah, I know. Hanging up, Ethan reassured Isabelle and continued to sample the other 2 dishes, his mind churning. The people following Finn were almost certainly from the celestial axis. When he had propped up Leo Bishop as the head of the East Side Syndicate, Ethan knew he couldn't keep a secret. A petty thief becoming a mob boss overnight was too suspicious. So he had intentionally leaked information, creating the persona of a mysterious grandmaster to keep people guessing. Lately, the East Side Syndicate had been making big moves, hitting casinos by day and fighting for turf and drug dealers by night. It was likely they had attracted the attention of the celestial axis, who might now suspect Ethan was the grandmaster behind it all. That would explain why they were tailing his men. As he thought, he finished the remaining 2 dishes. The tomato and eggs are good, he said with a smile. I'll go throw out the rest. Your friend brought a big bag of food, right? Let's just heat that up. Feeling utterly defeated, Isabelle mumbled an affirmative and went to the kitchen. Ethan took the trash downstairs, scanning the area. Everything seemed normal. As he was about to head back up, Jax called. Boss, There was a drone over the villa a minute ago. It hovered for a minute, then disappeared. Something feels wrong. Be careful. Keep an eye on the surroundings. I'll have Finn head back soon. Got it. Hanging up, Ethan dialed Leo Bishop. Is everything normal at the club tonight? Normal. Leo practically shouted over the noise. Everything is totally normal. Keep an eye out. If you see anyone suspicious, don't spook them. Just tail them quietly. You got it. I was just about to message you. We got our eyes on a smuggling operation tonight. We move at 1 a.m. Just wait for the good news. Okay, be careful. Ethan ended the call, took a deep breath, and went upstairs. Elsewhere, Finn was chasing his target through a maze of streets and alleys in a parkour-like pursuit. The man was also incredibly agile, moving like a phantom. Seeing Finn closing in, he ducked into an old building, trying to shake him. A moment later, they both emerged on the rooftop, one running for his life, the other in calm pursuit. If Finn had his gun, which was in the car, this wouldn't be taking so long. Reaching the edge of the roof, the man leaped without hesitation, landing on the roof of the adjacent building. He rolled, got to his feet, and kept running. Finn, equally fearless, vaulted across the wide gap. As he landed and rolled back to his feet, he fluidly drew the kukri from his waist and threw it with practiced force. He had aimed for the man's back, but his target ducked at just the right moment. The curved blade sliced clean through his left ear. Arg! With a scream of pain, the man scrambled for the stairwell door, slamming the heavy iron door shut and bolting it from the inside. He then fled down the stairs as if the hounds of hell were on his heels. Finn retrieved his kukri, glanced at the half-ear on the ground without a flicker of emotion, and kicked the iron door open to continue the chase. But by the time he reached the ground floor, the man had already jumped into the back of a black BMW. The driver fired 2 shots in his direction. Finn dodged for cover as the BMW's engine roared and the car shot away. Watching it disappear, Finn felt a pang of frustration. He put his kukri away and reported back to Ethan. Boss, he had a pickup. Got away. It seems like they were just watching me. They didn't want to engage. Ethan thought for a moment. Head back to Emerald Lake for now. I don't feel right with Jax there alone. Okay. Finn hung up and hurried to the clinic's underground garage to get his Hummer. As he passed the Korean restaurant, Zoe was gone. She had probably gone home. He felt a brief twinge of guilt for his abruptness, but only a twinge. He had no intention of calling her to explain. When he reached the garage, however, he patted all his pockets and couldn't find his car keys. He thought back and remembered taking them out during his treatment because they were digging into him. He must have left them on the table. With a sigh of resignation, he took the elevator back upstairs to Zoe's apartment. Arriving at her door, the killing machine was about to raise his hand to knock when he noticed the door was ajar. He knocked a few times, but there was no answer. Dr. Russell? Dr. Russell? I'm coming in. Growing impatient, Finn assumed the quirky girl was playing another prank, probably hiding behind the door to scare him. He pushed it open and strode in. But the apartment was silent. There was no sign of Zoe. A sudden, ominous feeling gripped him. The person he was chasing tonight had clearly seen him with Zoe. Dr. Russell, stop playing around and come out. I need to talk to you. Still no response. Something was definitely wrong. Finn quickly dialed her number. A moment later, a ringtone sounded from the bedroom. He let out a breath of relief, staring at the bedroom door, waiting for her to emerge. But a long moment passed, and she didn't appear. Finn blinked, then strode forward and threw the door open. The bedroom was a disaster zone. The phone lay on the bed, the covers were in a tangled mess, and clothes and stuffed animals were strewn everywhere, as if the place had been ransacked. Zoe was not there. Finn's heart clenched tight. After searching the entire apartment and finding no trace of Zoe, Finn bolted out the door. Seeing the elevators were all on the ground floor, he didn't wait, instead taking the stairs 2 at a time, heading straight for the security office to check the surveillance footage. As he neared the security office, he suddenly heard a soft, clicking sound. TSK, TSK, TSK. Zoe adored cats and dogs. Whenever she saw one on the street, she would make that sound to coax them over for a pet. Finn quickly followed the sound, and, sure enough, there was the big-hearted psychologist squatting by the greenery, holding a sausage in one hand and gently stroking a small black cat with the other, her expression a mix of goofy and content. Hello, little cutie. Did your mommy abandon you? Want to come home with me? The kitten, swallowing a mouthful, let out a soft meow. Is that a yes? Then I'll be your mommy. How about that? Zoe carefully picked up the black cat, using a tissue to gently wipe its eyes. I'll find you a daddy later, okay? From now on, your name will be Finnegan. To make up for your daddy's shortcomings, hee. As she chuckled, she caught sight of Finn slowly approaching from the corner of her eye. Her smile instantly froze, a mix of embarrassment and delight. But then she remembered how he'd abandoned her and fled, and a wave of indignation washed over her. She decided to ignore him, hugging the kitten and turning to go home. "Finnegan," she muttered under her breath, "you can't be like your dad. He's got a few screws loose. No wonder he can't get it together." The words had barely left her mouth when Finn suddenly grabbed the back of her collar, spinning her around to face him. "Why didn't you lock your door?" he demanded coldly. Zoe stared at him, dazed, as if she didn't understand what he was saying. Seeing that her handsome Appa was out of breath, she was even more confused, wondering what he'd been doing, running around in such a panic. "Why didn't you take your phone?" Finn gripped her shoulders, his voice even colder. If his face were capable of expression, it would be contorted with rage. Zoe felt a chill run down her spine under his gaze. She blinked blankly. I just went downstairs to take out the trash. Why would I need my phone?" "You're hurting me." As she spoke, it dawned on her. She had mentioned the flasher she'd seen the other day. Was her Appa worried about her? "Appa, are you worried about me?" Finn's eyes were dark. "Why didn't you lock the door?" Zoe pouted. "I thought I did. Maybe it didn't catch properly?" Why are you being so mean?" Finn was furious. It was only now he understood that the messy bedroom, which looked like a crime scene, was the handiwork of this slob. Sheba, how can a woman let her home look like a pigsty?" "Shebel." Zoe's cheeks flushed red. She looked down, trying to defend herself. I was cleaning my room. If you don't like it, I can change." "Jerk." Finn couldn't be bothered to argue with her anymore. But in his panicked rush downstairs, he still hadn't gotten his car keys. He grabbed Zoe by the collar again and marched her back upstairs, muttering "Shebel, Shebel" under his breath to vent his frustration. This was probably the angriest he had been since coming to this country. The moonlight was hazy, the streetlights cast a dim, yellow glow, weaving a warm hue that fell upon the emotionless killing machine, making the crucifix on his chest seem unusually sacred. Finn walked at a steady pace, his handsome face a mask of cold fury. Dr. Russell, held by the collar like a child who'd misbehaved, hung her head, swaying as she walked. The kitten in her arms yawned, meow. Night fell. Ethan couldn't sleep. He stood on the balcony, smoking silently, turning his phone over and over in his hand. The screen showed a message he'd sent to Milo 10 minutes ago, still unanswered. Knock, knock, knock. A knock on his bedroom door was followed by Isabelle's voice. "Ethan, are you asleep?" Ethan quickly stubbed out his cigarette, popped 2 pieces of gum into his mouth, and went to open the door. "Honey, why are you still up so late?" "Want to sleep with me?" Isabelle shot him a glare, in no mood for jokes. I just saw an online wanted notice issued by the police. Everett Yates. He escaped from a detention center." Ethan smiled, taking her hand and leading her to sit on the edge of the bed. "I know. It's okay. The police are looking for him, and Victor is looking for him. I'm sure they'll find him soon, unless he already fled the country last night." Isabelle frowned. "Everett Yates is vindictive. He'll definitely come after you and your father for revenge. Starting tomorrow, you should have Bruno follow you." Ethan's gaze softened. "Worried about me, honey? Be serious. I'm trying to have a serious conversation with you." Ethan took a breath. "It's fine. Just have him stick with you. It'll put my mind at ease. And don't forget, I have Finn. He used to be a special agent. With him around, what could possibly happen to me?" Isabelle felt a pang of guilt. Although Victor and Everett Yates had always been at odds, their life-and-death struggle was inevitable. But she, the beautiful woman at the center of it, had undoubtedly acted as a catalyst. If Travis Yates hadn't come looking for trouble with her, Ethan wouldn't have fought him at the hot pot restaurant, causing the situation to spiral out of control. What she didn't know was that Simone had already dragged the Yates family into the fray. Whether Travis had come after her or not, it wouldn't have changed Victor's plan. Ethan saw the guilt in his wife's eyes. "Izzy," he said gently, "I'm your husband. Protecting you is my responsibility. Don't overthink it." Isabelle bit her lip. "I'm sorry, Ethan," she whispered. I can't give you anything in return." Ethan said no more, simply pulling her into an embrace. Her body tensed for a moment, but she didn't resist, only subconsciously placing her hands against his chest as she lowered her head. A faint, wicked smile played on Ethan's lips. He gently cupped Isabelle's face, looking into the Ice Queen's flustered eyes. He hesitated, then decided to just go for the kiss. But at that exact moment, his phone rang. He glanced at the screen. It was Victor again. Isabelle shoved him away and hurried out of the bedroom. "Pervert, why are you so annoying?" Ethan's face was a picture of frustrated disappointment, but he wasn't as angry as the last time. He answered the phone. "Did you find him?" "No." Victor's voice was grim. "He sent a few punks to ambush me on the road." that didn't succeed, and they all got away playing guerrilla tactics. I'm just calling to remind you to be careful. It seems this mad dog is really ready to risk it all. Ethan was silent for a moment. Are you okay? The car is bulletproof. What could happen? Ethan scoffed. Good. Were you out chasing skirts in the middle of the night again? Or were you doing wandering around? Victor sighed. One of my smugglers got hit tonight. Lost several million. I want to check it out. Just got word who did it. Some group called the East Side Syndicate. Hell if I know where they came from. As the words left his mouth, Victor suddenly froze. His son had mentioned a while back that he wanted to prop up a new mob boss. Could it be? Ethan was equally frustrated. This Leo Bishop. How had he accidentally robbed his own father? Father and son were silent for a long moment, neither willing to state the obvious. Ethan finally broke the silence. I'm tired. I'm going to bed. Victor sighed heavily. Right. What did I do to deserve this life? After hanging up, Ethan checked his messages. Still no reply from Milo. He frowned slightly, placed his phone on the nightstand, and went to bed. About an hour earlier, Harrison had been summoned to the manor by his father, Walter, who unleashed a torrent of reprimands. You said you were letting your aunt have the overseas projects so she'd have a place to land when you eventually kicked her out of the Vance family. Fine. She's my sister. I don't want to be completely ruthless either. But I thought that after pulling out of the overseas projects, the next step would be to get her the hell out. I was already making plans to team up with your uncle to deal with her first, and what do? You go and stick a knife right in your uncle's ribs. What? Are you trying to be like those Japanese pirates? So ambitious and arrogant you think you can pull off a Pearl Harbor. Harrison calmly took a drag from a cigarette. Our branch is a fat, domesticated house cat. Grandfather has been propping us up the entire way. And now you're daydreaming about teaming up with that battle-hardened wolf? What makes you so confident you can snatch meat from a wolf's jaws? He's a wolf, but he's an unfavored one. Outside, he may be ruthless, but when it comes to family matters, what makes me confident? The fact that I, Walter Vance, am the firstborn son of this family. If the sky falls, I am still the primary heir. Grandfather will always be on my side. Harrison shook his head and sighed. Dad, what can you see besides money? You think Grandfather made my uncle pull out of the overseas projects to help you, the primary heir, suppress him? Heh, do you have any idea this was all my uncle's plan? And do you know that Grandfather was well aware from the start that those international students were beaten up on my uncle's orders by Ethan? Walter Vance was dumbfounded. Harrison continued. Letting you and Aunt Cassandra fight over that fat prize overseas was just for show, a diversion from my uncle. In reality, Grandfather wanted to see what other plans my uncle was cooking up behind the scenes besides just sitting on the mountain to watch the Tigers fight. Now, my uncle has made his move against the Yates family. His plans are out in the open. Next, he's coming for you. That's why we can't fight for the overseas projects. That is the place Grandfather has set aside for my aunt to land. Walter was stunned again and again. As slow as he was, he understood what Harrison was saying. Everything you've done was on Grandfather's orders? He asked in disbelief. Then, if Grandfather intended to push the second branch out to another country all along, why not move against her first? Harrison stubbed out his cigarette. A tripartite balance of power is often more stable. In some ways, the second branch's existence protects us. Although my aunt is arrogant and difficult to work with, she would never allow my uncle to grow unchecked. Letting her trip him up is a good choice. My uncle is not as easy to deal with as you think. Even Grandfather can't strip him of his power right now. If he pushes too hard, it will only backfire. For now, maintaining a balance between the three branches is the greatest restraint on him. You have to eat a meal one bite at a time and walk a path one step at a time. If you take too big a step, you'll only hurt yourself. A chill ran down Walter's spine. If Theodore had been teaching Harrison all this, why was he completely in the dark? Not long ago, his father had still been lecturing him about his duties as the primary heir, telling him to work harder, not to lose to his younger brother, saying the Vance dynasty could only belong to the first branch. Now it seemed Theodore was just toying with him. He had already chosen his successor. The first branch, he spoke of, probably referred only to his son, Harrison. Harrison looked at his father, reading the complex shock in his eyes. He knew his father finally understood. He dropped the pretense. Dad, I didn't want to say all this, but you just couldn't figure it out. You're getting old. It's time for you to retire. A thin layer of sweat broke out on Walter's forehead. He forced a smile. Harrison, you're too young. You can't control this family. Harrison gave a light laugh. Yesterday, his uncle had also casually told him, you're too young. It had seemed like a reprimand for his mistake with Everett Yates, but in reality, When Harrison had mentioned sending the second branch abroad, the old fox had already guessed it was Theodore's plan and was giving him a verbal warning. Now, his own father was saying the same thing, but Harrison felt none of the weight or pressure he'd felt from his uncle. He just said coolly, "I bought a manor in Hawaii. Go take a look. If you like it, you can retire there. I'll send you money regularly, enough for you to live lavishly for 10 lifetimes. In short, take my advice. You're no match for your siblings. Stop stirring the pot." Walter was frantic. "Son, listen to me. If we work together, we can take over the family within 3 years. Then what's mine will be yours. You're my son, my only son. No one can compete with you." Harrison stood up and calmly put on his jacket, a half-smile on his face. "If the Vance dynasty fell into your hands, it would only decline. Besides, you have 2 illegitimate sons. You were so afraid grandfather would find out that you sent them abroad, hiding it from everyone. Heh, grandfather knew 20 years ago. He didn't say anything to save you the embarrassment. And you still have the gall to criticize my uncle for his indiscretions every day. You're not just unambitious, you're stupid and malicious. Do you have any idea how disappointed grandfather is in you? If I weren't afraid of how Mom would take it, I would have demanded an explanation from you myself." With that, he turned and stormed out. Walter stood stunned for a long moment. Then, as if possessed, he chased after him, screaming, "You ungrateful whelp! You ungrateful whelp! Don't you ever come see me again. This family is mine. It's mine." Harrison didn't even glance back. He got into his Rolls-Royce Cullinan and sped away. The 3 cars of bodyguards behind him quickly followed. Walter, grinding his teeth, shouted at them, "Come back. All of you forget him. I raised him all this time, only to raise a thankless wolf." The bodyguards completely ignored him. A few of the bolder ones even shot him a mocking glance. Enraged, Walter furiously called his assistant. "They've all turned against me. Fire them. Fire all of Harrison's bodyguards." The assistant seemed to be thinking, and after a moment of silence, suddenly chuckled. "Chairman, it's getting late. You should probably get some sleep." Walter stood there, dumbstruck, a cold sweat drenching his back. He realized that while he had been living in a fool's paradise, his son had already stripped him of all his power, and his father, Theodore, had been feeding his delusions all along, toying with him. "Ha ha, ah ha ha." Walter collapsed to the ground, laughing and crying like a madman. The maids behind him just watched with cold indifference. However, 10 minutes later, Harrison's Cullinan came speeding back. As it got closer, Walter saw that the front of the car was smashed and deformed, the bulletproof windshield was gone, and the body was pocked with bullet marks. While he was still wondering what happened, Harrison scrambled out of the car, pulled a blood-soaked, groaning Chase from the passenger seat, and rushed him into the courtyard. "Call DR. Hayes, tell him someone's been shot. Hurry." The maids, their faces pale with fright, paid no attention to the dying Chase, instead flocking around Harrison. "Young master, are you all right?" Harrison glared at them, his face a mask of fury. "Call DR. Hayes now. Get Demerol. Demerol. Tell him to bring the whole kit," he roared. One of the maids finally snapped out of her stupor and frantically dialed DR. "Linus Hayes. Chase. Hang in there. You son of a bitch. You hang in there for me." Harrison, in a rare state of panic, carried Chase into a guest room and laid him on the bed. He ripped the comforter off the bed and pressed it hard against the gunshot wound in Chase's abdomen. Chase was in searing pain, a mouthful of blood spilling from his lips. His hands gripped the bedsheets. His teeth clenched as he fought to endure. Walter stood in the doorway, a cold smile on his face. "Everett Yates, I presume?" Daring to make a move near Phoenix Crest Manor. "He's gone mad. Everyone's gone mad. Ha ha." Harrison whipped his head around to glare at him, his eyes filled with a sinister light. It was the first time his father had seen such a look from him, and Walter felt an involuntary shiver of fear. He turned, hands behind his back, walked to the living room, and sat on the sofa, silently smoking. In truth, Harrison hadn't expected Everett Yates to be audacious enough to ambush him at the foot of the mountain. The old dog really had lost his mind. Could his mistress and cousin have some other, special identity? If they were just tools for money laundering, why would Yates go to such lengths? Or had he known all along how Travis really died? Harrison's brow furrowed. He leaned toward the latter explanation. Everett Yates had been in the underworld his entire life. He wasn't without patience. Right now, Victor was hunting him across the city, and the police had classified his case as a major crime, forming a multi-departmental task force. Under such immense pressure, the only thing that could drive him to this level of madness was vengeance for his son. It wasn't hard to guess that Victor had likely leaked the truth to him earlier. Otherwise, Even if Yates captured Victor now and was told the true story of Travis's death, he wouldn't believe it, assuming it was just a ploy to protect Ethan. The reason Harrison was so wary of his uncle was because Victor's schemes were so meticulous. When Harrison had wanted to kill Travis, he had called Victor to demand the man be handed over. In his rush for revenge, most people wouldn't have thought twice. Even if they suspected he was planning to frame Ethan, and even with some precautions, Everett Yates was already finished. There was no need to go to the trouble of ensuring Yates knew, and believed, who had truly killed his son. Yates's escape from the detention center was a complete accident, but thanks to Victor's thorough planning, the risk that should have fallen on Ethan had been deftly transferred to Harrison. A chill crept into Harrison's heart. On the long road to power ahead, could he really stand as a worthy opponent to Victor? A short while later, Dr. Hayes arrived, carrying his medical bag. The medical genius most trusted by Theodore Vance was not a striking man. His height and build were average, and he was usually quiet, seemingly mild-tempered and reserved. But his eyes always held a steely resolve that gave people a sense of profound reliability. Like the maids, Dr. Hayes didn't even glance at Chase, instead asking Harrison, "Young master, are you all right?" Harrison shook his head, his eyes fixed on the doctor's. "I don't care what you have to do," he said coldly. "My brother cannot die." Once he knew his young master was unharmed, Dr. Hayes seemed to relax. He methodically opened his medical bag and began treating Chase's wound. 10 minutes later, both bullets had been removed from Chase's abdomen. Dr. Hayes let out a sigh of relief. As he sutured the wound, he said, "It's not too serious. He won't die. I'll prepare some herbal medicine tomorrow for tissue regeneration. He'll be walking normally in 5 or 6 days." Harrison finally relaxed, offering a cool, perfunctory thank you. Under the effects of the anesthetic, Chase had calmed down. A pained smile appeared on his pale face. "Dr. Hayes, thank you. Sorry to trouble you so late at night." He paused, then joked, "Why don't you just give me the tools and medicine for gunshot wounds? I'll handle it myself next time. Saves you the trouble. Following this son of a bitch Harrison is hazardous to my health." Harrison smiled, but said nothing. Dr. Hayes finished suturing the wound and began packing his things. "Even doctors don't treat themselves," he said. "Let alone you." Harrison gently rubbed his thumb and forefinger together, lost in thought. After a moment, he slowly looked up at Dr. Hayes and smiled. "Dr. Hayes, you seem to never ask questions about anything. You just do what you're told. Aren't you curious who attacked me tonight?" Dr. Hayes shrugged. "I'm an outsider. Why would I ask so many questions?" Harrison stared into his eyes, unblinking. Dr. Hayes met his gaze without flinching. After a moment, Harrison smiled faintly. "Thank you for your hard work tonight." "It's my duty, Dr." Hayes replied, then turned and left. Harrison watched him go, his expression complex. On the bed, Chase looked at Harrison's profile, his own expression equally complicated. After a moment, Harrison turned back. "Regretting being my brother?" he joked. "I never asked you to throw yourself in front of me. You brought this on yourself." Chase gave him the middle finger. "Go to hell. Weren't you the one bragging your car could stop a sniper rifle?" "My ass." A big truck crumpled the front end in 2 hits. The windshield was tough, though. It popped out in one solid piece. "Seriously, you should take a lesson from your brother. Get a Hummer. This Cullinan is only good for showing off." "Fine. I'll buy a tank next time, and I'll buy you a plane. We're good brothers, after all." Chase grimaced. "Go to hell. Ugh. Get out. I don't want to see you. Don't you think I look like a ghost?" "Shit, if it weren't for this ghost, you'd be a real one right now." Harrison rolled his eyes. "All right, are you done? It's a special situation. Cut me some slack, brother." Chase grunted and cursed. "You son of a bitch. You're just like Chow Chow. Paranoid all day long, Harrison's expression darkened slightly. "My uncle," he muttered, "is the real Chow Chow." He paused, then picked up the 2 bullets from the table, a hint of guilt in his eyes. "Chase, including these 2, you've taken 3 bullets from me. Promise me, next time, just look after yourself. Go to hell." As he was speaking, Theodore Vance called. Harrison hadn't taken Chase directly to the Eyrie precisely because he didn't want his grandfather to know. He could only hide it until morning, at best, but in the middle of the night, with his grandfather's poor health, he couldn't disturb him. "Grandfather, are you hurt?" "I'm fine." Chase took 2 bullets. Dr. Hayes has already treated him. Theodore was silent for a moment. "The security team already told me. They couldn't catch the ones who shot at you. The ones they killed on sight were all old subordinates of Everett Yates. AI, you and your uncle, you've pushed him completely over the edge." Harrison said, "Grandfather, this time, I handled it poorly. Forget it. Tomorrow, you go and apologize to your uncle again. Don't be as dismissive as you were today. Be sincere. He knows Everett Yates best. He should know how to deal with him. You two need to work together and take care of this external threat first. Yes, grandfather. I'll go see him first thing in the morning. Good, Theodore said, his voice laced with meaning. Harrison, you must always remember, the Vance family can be divided, but if an outsider dares to touch anyone with our name, no matter who it is, you must chop them, and their entire family, into pieces to feed the dogs. No matter how the world changes, it has always followed one rule. If you're not ruthless, you cannot stand firm. People only respect you when they fear you. The next day, Ethan met Leo Bishop at a quiet coffee shop. He instructed him to keep an eye out for suspicious individuals at his club and to vet his new recruits carefully. The Celestial Axis had likely taken notice of them. He also casually mentioned the previous night's raid on the smuggler. When Leo learned the target had been Victor Vance, the color drained from his face and his hair stood on end. Give it back, he stammered. Ethan shook his head with a smile. Find a safe place to store it. Once the heat dies down, sell it off. You can keep the money. In a way, your little mistake was actually a good thing. Leo was completely bewildered. Whatever you say, Mr. Vance, he said with a fawning smile. Honestly, working for you, I feel like I won the lottery. They say you have to suffer to succeed, but I feel like a lifetime of suffering couldn't compare to 3 days of riding your coattails. Ethan smiled. People have a common misconception, thinking that to get strong, you just have to eat what's tough. So, if you want to be a top dog, don't just take punches, you have to be willing to bite. With or without me, you need to have a ruthless streak. Leo nodded vigorously. Yes, I understand. And one more reminder, don't get too lost in women. Besides that, you're doing great. I've changed, Mr. Vance, I really have. After another half-hour conversation, Ethan headed to the manor. When he arrived at Victor's courtyard, he found Harrison was also there. The uncle and nephew were in the pavilion, drinking tea and talking. Ethan strode over. Noticing a faint bruise on Harrison's jaw, he commented casually, Big bro, did someone make you kneel at gunpoint again? Victor was silent. Harrison, unfazed, smiled coolly. It didn't make me kneel. They really wanted my life. Oh, Ethan, show some respect, Victor interjected. Last night, Everett Yates ambushed Harrison near the manor. Thanks to Harrison's bodyguard, who took 2 bullets for him, the consequences could have been much worse. Ethan was surprised and smiled. Strange. Travis Yates was captured in my parking garage. Why wouldn't Everett suspect I killed his son, and instead come straight for you two for revenge? Harrison shot him a look. Everett Yates has truly gone mad. Just before dawn, he attacked my home. More than 10 gunmen. My bodyguards killed 3 and captured 2. The rest didn't get far before a police patrol picked up 4 of them. I've spent the whole morning at the station giving a statement. Ethan nonchalantly picked up a banana and began to peel it. Get anything out of them? Harrison shook his head. Nothing. Yates was directing them by phone. They don't know where he is. That wasn't surprising. Victor took a sip of tea. All the directors on the Yates board have vanished. I received intel that several of them are arranging to launder money overseas. That old bastard Everett is having his old cronies pool money for him. Once he's sure the funds have reached his foreign accounts, he'll leave the country. In the meantime, he'll do everything he can to get revenge. This morning, I reported the money laundering activities of those directors to the relevant authorities and submitted some evidence. Their accounts are probably frozen by now. Ethan scoffed, adding fuel to the fire. You think he's not mad enough already? Ha, big bro, you'd better be careful. Harrison said, this is a good thing. A corner dog will show its flaws. It's better to kill him than to let him escape. Victor pondered for a moment, then looked at Ethan. Son, you can't let a guard down either. Since his escape, Everett hasn't mentioned you once, nor has he made a move against you. I feel something is off. Stay vigilant, just in case. I know. Izzy has protection too. It's fine, Harrison said. Uncle, you took his fortune, and I killed his son. Things are tense right now. I doubt he has the spare thought or time to worry about Ethan beating up his son. His targets are us. Victor sighed. That's logical, but that old dog is unpredictable. I have a feeling this rampage is out of character for him. It's better to be careful. This morning, I mapped out all his possible escape routes and expanded the search. Harrison was silent for a moment. Then I'll send my men to check all the usual seedy hideouts. By evening, Ethan was bored and decided to pick up his wife from work. Just then, Everett Yates called Victor again, his voice a dragon's roar of fury. Likely afraid of being traced, he would curse for 10 seconds, hang up, then call back 2 minutes later to continue. It was utterly comical. During the last call, Victor faintly heard the sound of a ship's horn. He continued to trade curses with Yates, feigning rage before hanging up. He immediately passed this key piece of information to his men, telling them to expand their search at sea. Ethan decided not to leave just yet. While patiently waiting for news, he sent a text to Isabelle. "Honey, come straight to the manor after work." Isabelle, who had just finished a long day, saw the message. If it hadn't been for several important contracts she had to sign, Ethan would have brought her to the manor that morning. She hesitated, then replied, "Leo invited me and Zoe to his place for dinner. I'm going to see his mom. I'll just have a quick bite and come back." Ethan replied, "Okay, have Benny take you. Don't be too late." Although Yates's targets seemed clear now, Ethan didn't dare to be complacent. With Benny and Lily there, Isabelle's safety was more or less guaranteed. Besides, the streets were crawling with police. In broad daylight, as crazy as Yates was, his men wouldn't be crazy enough to openly fight the cops. Wiping out a gang required evidence, but counterterrorism only required target. Isabelle replied, "Okay, his mom hasn't been well lately. I'm just going to check on her." She then made a video call to Leo. The flamboyant Leo was currently wearing a pink headband, a face mask on, and fumbling around in his kitchen. "Izzy, pick up Zoe on your way and hurry over. I'm almost ready." Isabelle teased, "I thought your mom was cooking. Is your food even edible? Oh, has your dog of a man spoiled your palate? Oof. By the way, he won't get mad that you're not coming home for dinner tonight, will he? I'm seriously scared he'll strangle me." "He won't. He's not that scary. So sweet it's sickening." "Isabelle Thorne, you're done for. You've fallen in love? Go to hell." As they were talking, Leo's doorbell rang. "The beer I ordered is here. I gotta go. Go get Zoe, quick." "Okay." Hanging up, Isabelle stared blankly at her phone screen, replaying Leo's words in her mind. "You've fallen in love." Ethan's face involuntarily appeared in her thoughts. The river of love. What kind of river is that? Isabelle's heart was a mix of emotions. She didn't know what love was, but she had an indescribable feeling for Ethan. A feeling she had never had before, and it had been growing stronger lately. Lately, every day after work, she felt an inexplicable urge to go home. She knew there was someone at home, waiting to have dinner with her, and it seemed she really, really wanted to see him. "Isabelle, can you really do this?" she whispered to her reflection on the phone screen, her expression melancholic. Thinking of all the ways Ethan cared for her, she couldn't help but feel a pang of guilt. After a moment, the beautiful CEO sighed, grabbed her bag, and went downstairs. Once in the car, she looked at Lily in the passenger seat and had a strange thought. Was this young woman also hiding some deep skills? A few days ago, she would have assumed Benny was just sticking close to her to win her over. But now, knowing Yates had escaped, she couldn't help but think Lily was also here to protect him. She didn't ask. The three of them drove in silence until they picked up Zoe Russell. The moment the chatterbox got in the car, her mouth didn't stop. She gushed about how her appa was cold on the outside but warm on the inside, how he was actually worried about her. She told them how she had adopted a stray cat and named it Finnegan, which had made Finn so mad he kept muttering Sheeble under his breath. Isabelle couldn't help but smile. Lily bowed her head, hiding her own giggle, while Benny grinned openly, letting out a loud "Huh." As they neared Leo's apartment building, Zoe called him to ask if they needed to bring anything. She called 3 times, but there was no answer. "He's probably busy in the kitchen and didn't hear his phone," Isabelle said. Zoe wasn't convinced. "I'll try one more time. Every time we eat at his place, he's either out of chili peppers or can't find the bottle opener, always making us run up and down the stairs." She dialed again. The ringtone went on and on. Just as Zoe was about to hang up, the call connected. "Zoe, honey, Leo's busy in the kitchen. Are you here yet?" Zoe had a curse on the tip of her tongue, but hearing Leo's mother, she quickly swallowed it. "Auntie, we're almost there. Could you ask Leo if we need to bring anything?" There was a pause on the other end. Then the voice said, "No, you don't need anything." "Okay, Annie will be right there." A few minutes later, the car pulled into the underground garage. Isabelle looked at Benny and Lily and smiled. "Do you two want to come up?" Lily shook her head. "Ma'am, don't worry about us. You go ahead." Benny said, "We'll wait for you in the car, ma'am." Hith. Isabelle nodded. "Okay, thank you. I'll just go up to see his mother and have a quick bite. I won't be long." Meanwhile, at Phoenix Crest Manor, Victor had just received several photos. At the boundary between international waters and Port Sterling's territory, 3 yachts were anchored. The 2 on the sides were crewed with bodyguards. On the most luxurious yacht in the middle, several old men were gathered around a table, playing mahjong. They were 3 of the old directors from the Yates board, along with Everett Yates. But the photos were taken from a distance, and the men were inside the cabin, so the images were not very clear. Can you get clear shot? Victor asked. His bodyguards are very cautious, his subordinate replied. They're constantly scanning with binoculars. I was afraid of spooking them, so I didn't dare get closer. But our people are assembling now. Once we're confident we can take them, we'll move in. Victor frowned slightly. After a moment's thought, he said, have the Port Authority cooperate with you. Get more speedboats. There can be no mistakes. After hanging up, Ethan saw the grim look on his father's face. You think the Everett Yates on that boat is a fake, he mused. Victor was silent, his mind racing. Harrison looked at the photos. His position suggests he's heading for Thailand. I've heard before that Yates owns a casino in Thailand with a lot of gunmen. I think the man on the boat is him. At the first sign of trouble, he'll head into international waters to evade the police. And I'm sure his dogs in Thailand are already waiting in international waters to cover his escape from us. Victor remained silent. After a moment, he looked up at Harrison and asked abruptly, where did your mother go today? Harrison was taken aback. She's busy at the company. I have plenty of men protecting her. He paused. Uncle, do you think Yates is deliberately showing us a weakness? That he's not actually on the boat, and this is just a diversion to strike elsewhere? Victor's voice was heavy. I hope I'm just overthinking things. But something doesn't feel right. Harrison's brow furrowed. He stood up to leave. I'm going to the company to find my mother. Don't be rash. Victor stopped him. My men are already assembling. We'll have an answer soon. If you rush down the mountain now, it'll be even more dangerous for you. Harrison considered this, then sat back down and called his mother. Learning that everything was normal, he relaxed slightly. Half an hour later, Victor's phone rang. What is it? Chairman, it wasn't Yates. His directors said he got off the yacht at noon. Victor's hand tightened on the phone. He shot a look at Harrison. Harrison felt a surge of panic and immediately called his mother again. Mom, are you done with work at the company? Not yet. I'm in a meeting. Harrison, what's with you today? You keep calling me. Come back to the manor as soon as you're done. Let Dad handle whatever it is. Your father was drinking all last night. He's not answering his phone. AI. Harrison, you really angered him this time. Harrison pressed his lips together and repeated, just come back to the manor soon. The tension was getting to Ethan. He sent a text to Isabelle. Honey, are you done yet? I miss you. When there was no reply after a long moment, he called her, but the call went straight to voicemail. Ethan's composure finally broke. He quickly dialed Benny. Where is your mistress? She's at her friend's house. Lily and I are waiting in the car. Go up and check on her. Okay. A moment later, Benny called back, his voice frantic. Boss, something's happened. Seeing Ethan run from the pavilion like a man possessed, Victor's heart sank. Why would Everett Yates target Isabelle Thorne? Even if he didn't know their marriage was a sham, he could have guessed. Besides, in his eyes, Ethan was just a useless playboy. Even if he wanted to force Ethan's hand and make Victor taste the pain of losing a son, using Isabelle as leverage made no sense. For the current Everett Yates, every move increased his risk of exposure. Every step was a precious opportunity. Why would he waste an opportunity, risk a broad daylight kidnapping, just for Isabelle? Was he that confident Ethan would risk his life for her? It didn't add up. Everett Yates was not a gambler. The question was, his son had taken precautions. How had Yates succeeded so easily? Harrison watched the GTR speed away, his brow furrowed. Uncle, I'm going to help Ethan. Victor nodded grimly. Though this move by Yates had taken him by surprise, he didn't seem panicked. He called his subordinates, telling them to continue their search at sea, while he himself sat calmly at home, contemplating Yates's next move. The greater his reaction now, the more he would confirm Isabelle's importance to Ethan. At Leo's apartment, Zoe was still tied to a chair, the left side of her face swollen and red from slap. The tape over her mouth had been torn off by Benny. Go save Izzy, she cried. She was drugged and taken away by 3 men. One of them has a fresh wound on his left ear. The gauze is stained with blood. Leo was more seriously injured, stabbed in the abdomen and lying in a pool of blood. His mother, likely from the shock, was unconscious on the sofa, though she had no visible injuries. Earlier, after Leo had hung up with Isabelle, he thought the beer delivery had arrived. He opened the door without thinking, only to have a gun shoved in his face. The 3 men stormed in, subdued him and his mother, and tried to force him to call Isabelle and lure her over. But they had underestimated the bond between friends. Even as he cried and begged, the flamboyant Leo refused to comply until they stabbed him. Only then did he relent. But in reality, he had come to his senses amidst the panic. Isabelle was already on her way. He pretended to give in, planning to find a way to warn her. However, the moment he unlocked his phone, the screen showed his text conversation with Isabelle. The man with the wounded ear saw the message. I'll come to your place with Zoe for dinner tonight, and immediately understood Leo's plan. But it didn't matter. Isabelle had already replied, okay. All they had to do was wait for her to walk into the trap. Later, when Zoe called repeatedly, the man worried that Leo not answering would arouse suspicion. To be safe, he held a gun to Leo's head and forced his mother to answer the phone. Under duress, a mother's love is always the greatest weakness. There are plenty of unfilial children in the world, but mothers who do not love their children are rare indeed. Having lost his charge, Benny was in a state of panic. He quickly called Ethan. Lily, slightly more composed, untied Zoe and told her to call an ambulance for Leo and his mother. She then dragged Benny downstairs to the security office to check the surveillance footage. Meanwhile, Finn and Jax, having received the news, were also rushing to Leo's apartment to meet Ethan. When they arrived and learned that the man with the wounded ear had taken Isabelle, Finn immediately understood. The man last night hadn't been tailing him, but Zoe. Their original target had been Zoe, but Finn's appearance had foiled their plan. And in his escape, the man had realized Finn was no ordinary person. So they had changed their plan and targeted Leo instead. A short while later, Ethan's GTR screeched to a halt in front of the building. Benny's face was pale with guilt and anxiety. Boss, I. Ethan didn't blame his simple-hearted brother. He clapped him on the shoulder and turned to Jax. Any leads from the surveillance? The gate camera caught the man with the wounded ear driving out. There are a lot of cameras in this area. I'm hacking them one by one. I should have something soon. Lily quickly relayed what she had learned from Zoe, and Finn explained his theory. Ethan forced himself to remain calm, organizing the information in his head. Had Everett Yates been targeting Isabelle from the very beginning? Like Victor, he couldn't understand it. What was the point of this unorthodox move? Even if he wanted to threaten him, it had been a while, and he hadn't received any calls from Yates. What the hell is that bastard trying to do? Ethan was both furious and terrified, his mind starting to race. He kept telling himself, she'll be fine, Izzy will be fine. But remembering her kidnapping 10 years ago and the severe psychological trauma it had left, his panic only grew. On the surface, he was still forcing himself to be calm, but he didn't realize he had bitten his lip so hard it was bleeding. His right hand was clenched so tightly his nails had dug bloody crescents into his palm. His brothers saw his state and felt their own anxiety rise. For now, all their hopes rested on Jax. Soon, Jax, as expected, came through. He found a car on a traffic camera at an intersection. His fingers flew across the keyboard, importing the data into a map. The screen displayed all the possible routes the car could have taken. Just then, Harrison arrived. He stared at Jax's screen for a moment. Ethan, most of these routes lead to the coast. I think Yates is still at sea. He won't risk coming ashore. Send me all the routes. I'll have my men start searching immediately. Ethan nodded. This was no time to worry about the internal conflicts of the three branches. Taking down Everett Yates was their common goal. One wanted to save his wife. The other didn't want this problem to fester. Ethan had Jax send a route information to Harrison. Time was of the essence, and there was strength in numbers. He and his brothers then split up. Finn and Jax stayed together, continuing to hack cameras along the routes. Benny and Lily took another car. In the back of the G-Wagon sat the M200 Reaper sniper rifle Finn had just brought from the house for her. In fact, at that very moment, Everett Yates was in a place no one would have ever expected, the meatpacking plant where Harrison Vance had strangled his son, Travis. And Isabelle Thorne had just been brought before him. The effects of the drug were starting to wear off. Isabelle slowly opened her eyes. She was in the back of the car. The door was open. She forced her head up and saw, in the hazy distance, a figure squatting, scooping dirt into an urn. It looked like Everett Yates. Isabelle couldn't believe it. Her heart hammered in her chest. The drug still had a hold on her. Her body was limp and weak. With all her strength, she managed to sit up, leaning limply against the seat, her head spinning. Son, don't blame your father. My strength is nothing compared to Victor Vance's. I don't even have the right to take him down with me. But I promise you, I will go to Thailand, raise an army, and within 3 years, I will avenge you. Everett Yates's eyes were filled with tears. After scooping 2 handfuls of dirt into the urn, he lit 3 incense sticks and planted them in ground. He then opened a bag, took out some of Travis's clothes, and set them on fire. As he burned paper money, he sobbed out his grief for his son. Victor had been right about his initial plan not to seek immediate revenge, but he could never have predicted this. He didn't even know where Travis had died. The rumor he had spread was only that Harrison had killed him. The location was a fabrication. He'd said Harrison had dismembered the body and thrown it into the sea to feed the fish. Not long ago, Some of Yates's men had even gone to the seaside to burn offerings. Just then, the goon whose ear Finn had sliced off approached Yates and bent down. "Chairman, she's awake." Yates didn't look up. "Bring her here," he said coldly. Several bodyguards immediately dragged Isabelle from the car and threw her down next to him. Isabelle's face was a mask of terror. She was trembling uncontrollably. She didn't understand. Why had he kidnapped her? To threaten Ethan? If so, then Ethan was in grave danger. For some reason, she was certain Ethan would come for her, would risk everything for her. But she didn't want him to. Since marrying him, she had never given him anything in return. And now, she had become a bargaining chip used to threaten him. If anything happened to Ethan, it would be a debt she could never repay, not even in death. At the same time, she worried for her best friends. When she had arrived at Leo's house, she had been chloroformed the moment she walked in. Before losing consciousness, she had seen Leo lying in a pool of blood and Zoe being slapped to the ground. She didn't know if they were okay. If anything had happened to them, she would never forgive herself. "Ms. Thorne, long time no see." Yates glanced sideways at Isabelle, who was sprawled on the ground, shaking. "A few years ago, I came to your house to discuss your marriage to Travis with your father. You should remember me." Isabelle struggled to open her mouth. Beads of cold sweat gathered at her temples and rolled down her face. What? What do you want? Don't be afraid. I just want to give my son some comfort. From the time he was a boy, I gave him everything he ever wanted. This life, his biggest regret was not having you. So, I plan to bury you together. You can go down there and serve him well." A violent shiver ran through Isabelle. She froze, dumbstruck. "I, Everett Yates, may have come from the underworld, but I have my principles. I don't harm women and children. In the end, you don't really deserve to die. Just think of it as taking pity on this old father and my poor, ill-fated child." At this, Yates bit down hard, forcing back a sob, his face already streaked with tears. Strangely, Isabelle's trembling gradually subsided. A sense of resignation settled over her. So, it's not to threaten Ethan. Understanding that she wasn't a burden this time, a bargaining chip, Isabelle closed her eyes in despair. The fear in her heart suddenly lessened. The fate of a beautiful woman is often a lamentable one. In truth, Isabelle had already died after the kidnapping 10 years ago. She could never forget the image of her mother on her knees, pleading with that rich kid from the Liu family to leave her alone, offering herself up to keep her daughter safe. Though her mother had succeeded, buying Arthur Thorne time to rescue her, the proud woman could never overcome the shame. She had thrown herself into the sea. For 10 years, Isabelle had been tormented by dreams of her mother's humiliation. She dragged herself through each day with her psychological illness, finding solace only in burying herself in work. Every free moment was an agony. If I die, then I die. It's my fate. A release. It was just. She would never see that shameless bastard again. Never feel his gentleness. Never argue with him. Never. Isabelle found herself absurd. In this solemn moment, facing death, why was she still thinking of that Playboy heir? Strangely, she remembered a passage she had once read in a book. What is love? It's like a sickness with many symptoms. It's the desire to share, to meet, to be close. It's a loss of clarity. It's an immense tolerance. It's an inability to be apart. It's a constant lingering thought. It's an inexplicable devotion. It's the desire to possess him, and even more, to belong to him, to only belong to him. The deeper the love, the graver the sickness. A wise man once said, of all the words in the lexicon, only love brings the most pain. A poet once wrote, does the unplumbed heart know the depth of its own longing? Another once lamented, in the next life, do not be one who loves so foolishly, for there is no place on earth for such longing. Wasn't every one of them just a euphemism for a love that had become a terminal illness? Isabelle had never thought of possessing him, nor had she ever thought she could belong to him. But of these many symptoms, she seemed to have contracted quite a few. So she thought, a bitter smile on her lips, this is love. She understood what love was. And she understood that she had, perhaps, always been in love. But it was probably too late. Ethan. Isabelle slowly lifted her head, watching the clouds drift by. Not another word formed in her mind. She closed her eyes in despair. Beside her, Everett Yates scooped up a handful of ash and put it in the urn. Travis doesn't even have a body. Originally, I was going to burn you to death here. He paused, then changed his tone. But I have a friend in Thailand, a high monk. He told me to take some soil from the place where Travis was killed, then burn the clothes he loved most, take the ashes, and bring them to him. He will help me perform a ceremony for Travis, to let him rest in peace. So, Ms. Thorn, you don't need to be afraid now. I'm not going to kill you. You're coming with me to Thailand. I've already had someone buy a burial plot. After the ceremony, I will bury you and Travis in the same coffin. You won't have to suffer. I don't think Travis would like to see you burned beyond recognition. Isabelle said nothing, as if she hadn't heard a word. She continued to face the sky, a faint, melancholic smile on her lips. Everett Yates carefully cradled the urn, his face a mask of profound grief as he walked slowly toward a black executive van. Isabelle was hauled to her feet by a few bodyguards and thrown back into the car. A man stood by the van, obsequiously opening the door for Everett, his face plastered with a sycophantic grin. After getting in, Everett clutched the urn tightly to his chest. He lowered the window and stared at the man, his voice a low rumble. Thank you. If it weren't for you, I never would have known Travis died here. The man gave a fawning laugh. Mr. Yates, you're too kind. It was my duty. A faint smile touched Everett's lips. Did you ever consider the consequences of betraying Harrison Vance for $500,000? The man's expression didn't change. I'm leaving the country tonight. My fiancée. She's Japanese. We're going to settle there. Harrison Vance isn't exactly cheap, is he? Everett pressed. He trusted you so much. Weren't you afraid you'd miss out on a payday? It might not have been 500 grand, but it would have been better than living like a rat in hiding, wouldn't it? The man stammered. Actually, it wasn't about the money. Harrison, he acts like such a gentleman, all calm and refined, but it's all an act. A few days ago, he personally shot the mole and his crew. I was there. Those guys had been with him for years, and he showed no mercy. I was terrified. I knew it was only a matter of time before that was me. Everett laughed. So you're a mole too. He just hadn't found you yet. Is that it? The man froze, seeming to realize he'd said too much. He clamped his mouth shut. Everett snorted, his voice turning to ice. Don't worry about the other half of your payment. You won't need it where you're going. A man like you is a waste of air. The man's eyes shot wide with shock. Mr. Yates, you. I came up from the streets. Everett cut him off. And there's nothing I hate more than a traitor. With that, he raised the window and signaled the driver. Outside, one of Everett's bodyguards dealt with the informant, a single, muffled sound swallowed by the desolate landscape. Meanwhile, Ethan was still searching frantically. Jax's keyboard was practically smoking as he sifted through endless surveillance feeds, the possible routes on his screen narrowing down, shared in real time with both Ethan and Harrison. When Harrison saw a route leading to the coast that passed right by his slaughterhouse, a terrible premonition struck him. Travis Yates had pursued Isabelle once, a painful, unrequited love. Could it be? Was Everett planning to offer Isabelle as a living sacrifice? The idea was absurd, but men of Everett's generation were often steeped in superstition. It was entirely possible he'd do something so twisted. He immediately called Ethan. When Ethan heard the theory, he slammed on the brakes, pulling a screeching U-turn and rocketing toward the meatpacking plant. At the same time, he called his team, telling them all to converge on the same location. Considering what his father, Victor, had said about Everett's mindset, he found Harrison's guess horrifyingly plausible. Harrison wasn't far from the plant and arrived in 10 minutes. The sight of burnt joss paper, clothes, and the corpse of his own trusted bodyguard in the courtyard told him everything. His grim speculation was confirmed. But where was Isabelle? Just as he was about to call Ethan, the GTR drifted through the gate in a cloud of dust. The two brothers got out and locked eyes. Ethan saw no sign of Isabelle, and his face grew darker. Your wife should be okay. He took her, Harrison said, his eyes scanning the ashes of incense and paper on the ground. He's likely following some superstitious ritual. Things like that have strict requirements for time and place. She should be safe for now. Ethan ground his teeth, then looked down at the fresh tire tracks his car had just made. He followed a different set of tracks out the gate, studying the direction the other vehicles had gone. The plant was remote, and the road outside the gate was a wreck, still pockmarked and muddy from the torrential rain 2 days ago. The tire prints were clear. Harrison frowned. They're heading for the coast. The nearest place they could dock a boat is half an hour's drive from here. The old dog isn't trying to leave the country directly. He's heading south to the waters off the Azure coast to evade our blockade and then loop around to Thailand. He quickly pulled out his phone to call Victor, hoping his father's men could converge on that area, but he knew it was probably too late. Victor's people were all stationed along the primary international shipping lanes, a long way from here. The entire southeastern side of Port Sterling bordered the ocean. Not even Victor, let alone the police, could lock down every inch of it. Otherwise, smuggling wouldn't be such a thriving business. Ethan glanced at the incense sticks on the ground. They were burned almost to the stubs. Everett had left at least 10 minutes ago. Worse, this road was a disaster. The GTR's low chassis was completely unsuited for it. Chasing them now was likely futile. But he refused to believe it, refused to give up any chance to save his wife. He jumped back in the car and floored it, tearing down the road like a madman. He didn't slow for the potholes and ruts, the car frequently going airborne, the chassis screaming with the painful scrape of metal on asphalt. His driving skill was the only thing keeping him from crashing. The car itself? He couldn't have cared less. The entire way, Ethan's heart was in his throat. A man who had always believed in the power of his own will found himself, for the first time, begging the heavens for a chance. But it seemed the heavens had never shown him any favor. An illegitimate son of a wealthy family, his father remarrying on the day he was born, scorned by everyone. He finally escaped that gilded cage to live with his mother, only for her to be taken from him, leaving him to endure inhuman abuse. Just surviving had probably used up all his luck. Ethan took a deep, shuddering breath. God, he muttered, his voice trembling on the edge of hysteria. My hands are covered in blood. I know I'm going to hell to pay for it. If you think I don't even deserve that, then punish me. Carve the flesh from my bones. Grind me into paste. Shatter me into a million pieces. Do anything you want. I'm begging you, just don't hurt her. Please, don't hurt her. His voice cracked. She's done nothing wrong. The only mistake she ever made was marrying me. Punish me. I'm begging you, God. But God always had a cruel sense of humor. Just as the coast came into view, the car couldn't take any more abuse. The engine sputtered and died. Ethan frantically turned the key again and again, but the car was dead. It was just a souped-up GTR, not some indestructible Batmobile. Damn it! He slammed his fist on the steering wheel, then, without a second's hesitation, threw open the door and started running toward the sea. He was racing against himself, and he was racing against God. After 3 or 4 minutes of a dead sprint, he finally saw it. The ocean, and 3 cars parked by the shore. As he closed the distance, a luxury yacht came into view. This time, God had finally chosen to help him. Everett Yates was just boarding the yacht. His bodyguards had already dragged Isabelle on ahead of him. Fearing she might cause trouble, they were now tying her hands and feet with rope. Seeing that his wife was unharmed, Ethan was flooded with a desperate relief. He pulled out his gun, the click-clack of him chambering a round sharp in the sea air. Using a grove of trees as cover, he crept closer, his mind racing to form a rescue plan. More than a dozen bodyguards, all with guns tucked into their waistbands. If it were just them, Ethan was confident he could handle it. But they had Isabelle. In this situation, a one-man assault was suicide. He pulled out his phone and checked his team's location. Benny and Lily were the closest, but they were still at least 10 minutes out. It looked like he was on his own. If he waited and that boat left the harbor, the variables would multiply. Just then, from a patch of tall grass in the woods beside him, a bodyguard stood up, his face pale. He'd clearly been having stomach trouble. As he started to buckle his belt, he happened to see Ethan hiding behind a large tree. At the same moment, Ethan's peripheral vision caught the movement. He instinctively raised his gun, but he'd come in such a hurry he hadn't brought a silencer. Not wanting to give himself away, he raised a finger to his lips, warning the man to stay quiet. But the bodyguard was already yelling in shock. "Ethan Vance?" he shouted, bending down to grab his gun. Ethan squeezed his eyes shut in frustration and, without hesitation, pulled the trigger. Bang! On the boat, Everett had thought he heard someone shout, "Ethan Vance." He was still reeling in shock when the gunshot echoed across the water. He immediately drew his own weapon and ducked behind Isabelle, shouting to his men, "Go see what that was." He had been so careful. How could Ethan have found him this quickly? Isabelle, her mouth taped shut and her face ashen, suddenly widened her eyes. She stared numbly at the woods on the shore, her eyelids fluttering. "Ethan is here?" A wave of excitement crashed through her, followed immediately by a tide of dread. She was in Everett's hands. No matter how many men Ethan brought, he would just be walking into a trap. Everett watched the play of emotions on her face, a flicker of confusion giving way to a surge of glee. He had always dismissed Ethan as a spoiled playboy and knew their marriage was a sham. He'd assumed that whatever feelings they had for each other were shallow. He had never even considered using Isabelle to threaten Victor and his son. But now, it seemed the bond between Ethan and Isabelle was anything but shallow. As the thought crossed his mind, a bodyguard yelled, "It's Ethan Vance. He's alone." Hearing this solidified Everett's theory. He threw his head back and laughed. "It's fate. It's a gift. Son, did you lead him to me? Ha ha. Ethan Vance, are you here to save your wife? Ha. I'll count to 3. If you don't want her to die, you'll get your ass out here and see me. Ethan gritted his teeth, his eyes darting around, scanning the terrain. He ejected the magazine from his gun, took out all the bullets, and then, one by one, inserted the tip of each bullet back into the barrel. With a hard twist, he loosened the projectile in its casing, just enough that it could be pulled out by hand. He quickly stuffed the modified rounds into his shoes. 1, 2. Everett was gambling. He was betting that Ethan, who had come alone and risked everything, valued Isabelle enough to surrender. When Isabelle heard he was alone, she panicked. She frantically pushed her tongue against her lips, trying to dislodge the duct tape, to scream at him not to be a fool, that he was walking to his death. But the tape was stuck fast. No matter how she struggled, it was useless. All she could do was scream inside her head, "Go! Can't you stop being so stupid?" 3. Everett bellowed. At the same moment, Ethan finished tucking the 5 modified bullets into the heels of his shoes. He sent a quick text to Jax, just 3 letters, "Yes, Then he tossed his phone and gun aside and walked out of the woods with his hands raised. The bodyguards swarmed him, pinning him down. Seeing his gamble had paid off, Everett's laughter grew more unrestrained. "Quick, bring him aboard." "Ha ha." Isabelle's expression sank into complete despair. She watched as they dragged Ethan onto the yacht, her eyes a mixture of guilt and reproach as fat tears streamed down her face. Ethan said nothing. A small, reassuring smile played on his lips as he shook his head slightly. Everett stomped hard on Ethan's chest, knocking him to the deck, and roared with manic laughter. He took a baseball bat from one of his men and swung it with all his might, bringing it down on Ethan's body again and again. Tears streamed down Isabelle's face. She squeezed her eyes shut, unable to watch. Ethan clenched his jaw, not making a sound, his legs curled tightly behind him. The other bodyguards stood guard, scanning the surroundings for any sign of accomplices. One of them held a gun to Isabelle's head, a clear warning to Ethan not to try anything. They were leaving nothing to chance. After venting his fury, Everett pressed the bloody bat against Ethan's face. "Wild kid, how'd you find this place, huh? You've got some nerve. Coming here all alone. That worried about your wife?" Ethan's lips were a thin line as he glared at him. "It doesn't matter how you found me. Even if Victor Vance himself showed up now, I wouldn't be afraid." Everett crowed. You can find this place. You know how to use a gun. I underestimated you. But I won't overestimate you either. You fell right in my hands for a woman. And here I was, worried about what to do if your father cornered me. You just delivered my get-out-of-jail-free card right to my doorstep, didn't you? Ha ha. The other bodyguards joined in the laughter. Ethan spat a wad of bloody saliva, feigning uncontrollable rage, using a woman as a shield. "What the hell kind of man are you?" He was cursing, but inwardly, Ethan felt a small measure of relief. While Everett had gambled on his love for Isabelle, Ethan had gambled on Everett's cautious nature. He had bet the old man wouldn't kill him right away, but would use him as insurance to reach international waters. It seemed his gamble had also paid off. Everett swung the bat a few more times. "Young mister." "Vance," he sneered. "You and I don't have some life-or-death feud. You beat my son. I'm beating you. We can call it even. But your father, he owes me far too much. I can't get to him right now, so you could be the interest payment." Ha ha ha. He waved a hand, and his men searched Ethan, tossing everything they found into the sea. Not just his wallet and keys, but even his lighter. Fortunately, they paid no attention to his shoes. They tied his hands and feet and kicked him over to the railing at the stern of the boat. "Don't get trigger-happy yet," Everett ordered. "Once we're safely in international waters and meet our rendezvous, you can have your fun with him. Torture him to death and throw his body to the sharks." "Ha ha ha, let's go." Isabelle's vision blurred with tears. She looked at Ethan, beaten and bloody because of her, and her heart felt like it was being shredded. The yacht slowly pulled away from the coast. Everett went into the main cabin, and for good measure, dragged Isabelle inside with him, placing her on the sofa in front of him. Then, cradling the urn, he began muttering to his son, his expression one of profound sorrow. Ethan leaned against the railing, watched by a large group of bodyguards. He turned his head to look at Isabelle through the cabin window, his eyes full of a gentle tenderness. He mouthed the words, "Don't be afraid," then glanced back toward the shore. Isabelle's eyes were now filled with nothing but guilt, the tears flowing freely without end. Soon, the yacht was a kilometer from shore. Ethan looked back again, a barely perceptible flicker of anxiety in his eyes. As the boat moved farther out to sea, the bodyguards began to relax. They started joking with each other, talking about their bright futures in Thailand, or taunting Ethan, or casting leering glances at Isabelle inside the cabin. For Port Sterling's most beautiful woman, a look was all they could afford, and even that was risky. Everett was sitting right behind her. If he caught them looking at his future daughter-in-law, with filthy eyes, they'd get a beating for sure. Only 2 guards, one on each side of the boat, remained vigilant, scanning the horizon with binoculars. But even they were distracted. They had Ethan Vance. Even if his father caught up, what could he do? The sun sank toward the sea, the evening sky's colors fading. On the shore, a plume of smoke rose, painting a desolate picture against the twilight. Ethan watched the grimly appropriate scene, sighed softly, and turned his head toward the cabin. He struggled, as if trying to get up. The bodyguards noticed his movement, but did nothing, just watched him with mocking amusement. His hands and feet were bound tightly with fishing line. Even with a knife, it would take him forever to cut through it. With his hands tied behind his back and his feet bound together, Ethan writhed like a maggot for a long time, squirming closer to the cabin door. Finally, he managed to struggle to his knees. Blood was still trickling from his head. After catching his breath, he yelled, "Mr. Yates, I have a favor to ask." Everett glanced up but ignored him, silently smoking his cigarette. Ethan yelled several more times, "Mr. Yates, I have a favor to ask." Everett clicked his tongue, grabbed his bat, and stormed out of the cabin. He brought it down hard on Ethan's shoulder. "Are you fucking annoying or what?" The blow was heavy. Ethan's body slumped, and his head slammed into the railing. The world spun, and a sharp pain shot through his left arm. After a moment, Ethan shuffled on his knees, turning to face the men, his hands resting limply on his heels. He looked at Everett with a pleading expression. "Mr. Yates, I know you have a deep-seated hatred for the Vance family. I know I'm not going to make it out of this alive. But my wife, she has nothing to do with the feud between our families. Please let her go. I'll do anything you ask. I, Ethan Vance, have never kneeled and begged anyone in my life until now." Isabelle shook her head frantically, her eyes screaming, "If you die, I won't live alone." Everett stared for a second, then burst out laughing. "Looks like you still haven't figured out why I took this girl. Humph. Did you think I was like your father, unable to walk straight when he sees a pretty woman? Let me tell you, this girl is for my son." Ethan's face registered shock, then a bitter smile. "I see. You son of a bitch. You're going to sacrifice her? You'll be damned for this. I've done plenty of things to be damned for." Everett sneered. Ethan clenched his teeth, glaring at Everett for a long moment before closing his eyes in resignation. "Fine. It's come to this. I accept it. Izzy, I'm sorry. I couldn't protect you." Isabelle sobbed, shaking her head and making muffled sounds, her words lost. Everett grinned. "You're just like your father, a romantic fool. But you're not as cold-blooded as he is. If it were him here today, he wouldn't give a damn about his woman." With that, he turned to go back inside. "Yates," Ethan called out, "let me have a cigarette. It's my only vice. I'm afraid I'll miss it when I'm dead." Everett didn't know Ethan well, but his chain-smoking habit had been a frequent topic of criticism in the media. He heard about it. Still, he wasn't feeling charitable. He took 2 mocking steps forward. "Beg me." Ethan pushed his tongue against the inside of his cheek, his eyes filled with resentment, but said nothing. Everett laughed loudly, then pulled out his phone and started a video call with Victor Vance. When the call connected, Victor saw his precious son covered in blood. His brow furrowed instantly. "Well, old friend. Surprise. Ha ha." Victor's lips tightened. Despite all the storms he had weathered in his life, he couldn't stop the panic from rising. He had just received Harrison's message that Ethan was chasing Everett. He never imagined. Everett had made the call partly as a warning, but mostly for humiliation. "Young Mr. Vance, you want to smoke? Come on, beg me. I'll give it to you." Ethan sat on the deck, his feet tucked under him, and glared at Everett. "Go to hell." Everett snorted and pointed at Isabelle. "Or maybe I should use her to find a way to make you beg?" Ethan gritted his teeth and knelt up straight. "Mr. Yates, I'm begging you." "Begging me for what?" Everett mocked. "Louder. Your father can't hear you." Victor crushed the teacup in his hand, his palm dripping with blood. He remained silent. "I'm begging you, don't touch her." "Ha ha. Wrong, try again." "You should say, 'Uncle Everett, please, give me a smoke.'" Perhaps from the blood loss, Ethan was looking more and more exhausted. His eyelids drooped, his head nodding heavily. His pale lips moved. "Uncle Everett, please, give me a smoke." Isabelle's eyes were bloodshot. Her damn man had only ever bullied others. When had he ever been humiliated like this? Everett was satisfied. He took the nearly finished cigarette from his lips and stuffed it into Ethan's mouth. Then he walked back toward the cabin, laughing. "Old friend," he warned Victor, "you'd better not try anything stupid. I'm on edge right now, a little jumpy. If I get scared, I might just have to stab your son a few times to calm my nerves. Ha ha. Ethan stared at his back, taking a deep drag from the cigarette. Just then, a bodyguard pointed to the shore. There's a fire. Look at all that smoke. Everyone turned to look. Ethan glanced over as well, then tilted his head and spat the cigarette, but out near his feet. The bodyguards were still watching the fire from across the shore. A moment later, one of them looked back and saw Ethan still kneeling properly. He chuckled and swaggered over, standing in front of Ethan with his arms crossed, enjoying the sight of him kneeling. He was about to say something mocking when he suddenly smelled gunpowder. Before he could react, a flash of fire sparked behind Ethan, as if something had been lit. The bodyguard's eyes widened. As he reached for his gun, Ethan's hands were already free. In one smooth motion, he grabbed the gun from the man's waistband, drew it, and fired a single shot into his stomach. He then rolled forward, diving into the cabin, firing at the other bodyguards as he tackled Isabelle to the floor. At the exact same time, Everett, hearing the gunshot, whipped his head toward the cabin entrance. As he instinctively reached for his own gun, a bullet materialized out of nowhere, shattering the window to his side and burying itself in his temple, blowing his head apart. Time rewound to the moment the yacht left the coast. A few minutes later, the G-Wagon skidded to a stop on the shore. Lily jumped out, assembled her sniper rifle, and looked toward the yacht. Though it wasn't too far, Everett was inside the cabin, giving her no clean shot. Worse, her young master and young mistress were both tied up. Even if she took out Everett, the other bodyguards would surely kill them in the chaos. Benny was staring at his phone, at the message from Jax, pacing in frantic circles. "What are you spinning around for?" Lily cried, her voice strained with anxiety. "Hurry up and call Jax. Ask him what we do next." Benny looked utterly lost. He handed the phone to Lily. "Look, it's our code. The first letter, E, is for direction, east. The second, S, is for signal. Capital S means we send signals back and forth. And is for you to assassinate Everett. We have to do it in that order. Can't mess it up. Which way is east?" I'm so stressed out, I can't tell." Lily stared at him, bewildered. "What are you even talking about?" She gave up and just called Jax herself. Jax had just launched a drone. He answered, "Harrison said Everett is heading south. Look to your east. There should be a good firing position." Lily turned her head. "I see it. A high point with a wide-open view." "Have Benny light a fire to signal the boss," Jax continued. "As soon as he signals back, you take out Everett." Lily was on the verge of tears. Young master's hands and feet are tied. "How can he signal back?" "The boss used a capital S," Jax said firmly. "That means he has a way. You watch closely. The moment you see him make a big move, you take the shot. You have to kill Everett in one go. Otherwise, you'll get the boss killed." Finn, next to Jax, added, "Don't mess up the order. Don't shoot too early. And is it windy by the sea?" "It's an M200. What's your range?" Lily was already running toward the firing position. "The wind isn't bad." I don't know my range. I've never used this thing before." "Let's hope the boss can keep it under 2 kilometers, Finn said grimly. Lily glanced at the sea, her voice panicked. "It's already almost 800 meters. "Lily, don't panic," Finn said. "Stay steady. The boss's life is in your hands. It'll be a while before Jax and I can get there." Lily hung up and scrambled up to the vantage point like her life depended on it. The position was on a diagonal to the yacht, giving her a perfect angle on Everett. She lay down, aimed the rifle, and the scope registered the distance at approximately 3 kilometers. Everett was sitting in the cabin, his head against the window. If she fired now, she wouldn't miss. But Ethan's code put the assassination last. She had to wait for his signal. As the yacht grew smaller, the immense pressure made Lily's breath tremble. Her hands shook uncontrollably. If she missed, her young master was finished. She bit her lip, her young face pale with tension. She tried to pump herself up, closing her eyes, taking deep breaths, and wiping her sweaty palms on her clothes. Meanwhile, Benny had siphoned some gas from the G-Wagon, doused a large tree, and soon a plume of smoke was rising, telling Ethan they were ready. On the boat, Ethan saw the signal and knew he couldn't wait any longer. He knelt facing the men, feigning near unconsciousness from blood loss to lower their guard. At the same time, with his hands behind his back, he retrieved the modified bullets from his shoes, pulled off the projectiles, and sprinkled the gunpowder onto the fishing line, binding his hands and feet. Then he asked Everett for a smoke, using a cigarette, but to ignite the powder was his best option, but getting the cigarette was no guarantee. He had a backup plan. If Everett refused, he would ram him with his head, signaling Lily. But that was far riskier. Even if he took out Everett, he couldn't be sure the remaining guards would listen to reason. Luckily, his plea worked. After a round of humiliation, Everett contemptuously gave him the cigarette, but by then, the yacht was nearly 4 kilometers from the shore. Though Lily had forced herself to calm down, facing this extreme distance, her confidence wavered for the first time. She held her breath, sweat dripping from her temples, her eyes locked on Everett's head through the scope. Taking advantage of the perfect opportunity, while Everett's bodyguards were watching the fire, Ethan broke his bonds and seized a gun, signaling his readiness. Lily held her breath and squeezed the trigger. Bang! The bullet flew for nearly 3 seconds. Lily's heart was at her throat. Those 3 seconds felt like 3 centuries. The shell ejected, tracing a shallow arc in the air. The powerful recoil jolted her shoulder back, messing up her bangs. The air around her seemed to freeze. Ting! The shell casing landed on a rock with a crisp sound. At the exact same instant, the bullet unerringly found Everett's temple. A single, clean headshot. The M200's reputation as the world's #1 long-range sniper rifle was well-earned. Of course, the credit truly belonged to the girl with God-given talent. The yacht was a moving target, rocking on the unsteady sea. The slightest miscalculation would have sent the bullet wide. Or worse, it could have hit Isabelle, who was sitting right in front of Everett. Lily let a sharp breath. Elated but not letting her guard down, she shifted her aim to the cockpit. She fired 3 more times. One missed, but the other 2 took down the pilot and co-pilot. Though the throttle was still engaged, the yacht wasn't on autopilot. Without anyone at the helm, it immediately started to veer off course. Then, Lily began rapidly picking off the bodyguards. It all happened too fast. When Ethan shot the guard in front of him, the others had only just turned at the sound of the gunshot, fumbling for their own weapons. By then, Ethan had already rolled into the cabin, shot the lookouts on either side of the boat, and dragged Isabelle to the floor, shielding her with his body. The beautiful woman, spattered with Everett's blood, was still in shock when Ethan pulled her down. The bodyguards tried to rush the cabin, but it was too late. Not only was Ethan a crack shot, but a ghost sniper was picking them off like targets in a gallery. They couldn't advance and were forced to scramble for cover. It wasn't that they were slow. That Ethan had escaped his bonds was unbelievable enough. But Everett being assassinated by a sniper? That was beyond comprehension. A moving, rocking target from over 2 kilometers away? Not even special forces could guarantee a one-shot kill like that. For these men, who thought they had seen the world with Everett, but in reality had no idea what the world was really like, this was a strike from another dimension. Hearing the continuous ping of sniper rounds hitting the yacht, Ethan knew the distance was too great for Lily to guarantee hits. She was just providing covering fire. He kept his gun aimed at the cabin door, but didn't fire again. He checked the gun he'd taken. It had 4 rounds left. Everett's gun was only half loaded, with 8 bullets. Against more than 10 bodyguards. While also protecting Isabelle, his chances were slim to none. He wasn't looking for a fight to the death unless he had no other choice. Everett was dead, and the bodyguards were pinned down by Lily's sniper fire. The safest play now was to negotiate. Yates is dead, he yelled. Are you really going to die for him? I'm telling you, there's more than one sniper on that shore, and they're all using M200s. From this distance, they can pop your heads like grapes. And Victor Vance's people will be here in half an hour at most. As he shouted, he untied his wife. Isabelle, still trapped in a haze of despair and self-blame, hadn't fully processed the sudden turn of events. When Ethan ripped the tape from her mouth and planted a quick kiss on her lips, she finally snapped out of it. She grabbed his shoulders, her voice trembling. Ethan had no time for more. He crouched low and pulled Isabelle into the galley kitchen. After a quick scan, he whispered, "Sweetheart, hide behind the fridge. Don't come out, no matter what." Isabelle nodded in terror, her hands still clutching him tightly. Ethan smiled. "Don't be afraid. You hide. I can handle them." Only then did she let go, shrinking behind the stainless steel refrigerator. "Ethan, promise me. You have to be okay." He nodded, a grin spreading across his face. "Don't worry." He slipped out of the kitchen, closing the door behind him. The bodyguards outside ignored his words, but terrified of the sniper, none of them dared to expose themselves. They just fired blindly into the cabin from time to time. They were all huddled at the stern, while Ethan was near the bow. They didn't dare enter, and he didn't dare make a run for the glass-enclosed cockpit. That was a death sentence. All he could do was hold his position and wait them out. "Listen to me. We can all walk away from this. This yacht must be worth over 100 million, right? Take it to Thailand, sell it, and you'll walk away with tens of millions. Why throw your lives away here for a dead man? You must have noticed the boat is off course. Make a decision, fast. There's no need for all of us to die." The gunfire lessened. Though they were still shooting, nearly half the men were hesitating. Just then, 3 drones zipped over the surface of the water, adding another layer of pressure. Ethan saw the drones out the window. You see that? My people are closing in. You can either rush in here, and maybe 3 or 4 of you will survive, or you can let us go, get this boat back on course, and escape with your lives. The gunfire almost stopped. The bodyguards were all doing the math. Everyone wanted to be one of the lucky few, but no one wanted to be cannon fodder. 2 hotheads tried to sneak along the side of the boat for a flanking maneuver, but Ethan was ready. 2 quick shots sent them tumbling into the sea. Anyone else want to try? Huh, come on, if you're not afraid to die. Ethan's nerves were stretched thin. Seeing no one else was making a move, he yelled, "Listen to me. We're out of time. Wait any longer, and none of you are getting out of here. If you accept my offer, put the inflatable raft in the water. Once I'm off the boat, you run. Without Everett, you can cash this yacht in. With that kind of money, you could be your own bosses in Thailand. That's better than being his dog for the rest of your lives, isn't it?" A moment later, a voice from outside called out, "Tell Victor Vance not to come after us." Ethan let out a breath he didn't realize he was holding. "Don't worry. By now, he couldn't catch you even if he wanted to. Get the raft in the water, and I'm gone. But if you delay, I promise you won't make it." "Fine. You have 1 minute. And don't try any cheap shots. We don't have a feud. If anything happens to me, Victor Vance will hunt you to the ends of the earth." Hearing the sound of an air pump, Ethan rushed back to the kitchen. He kept an eye on the cabin as he brought Isabelle out. He smashed a window with an ashtray. "Sweetheart, when they get the raft in the water, we're jumping. Dive deep, you understand? Don't be scared." Isabelle had regained some of her strength. She nodded tremulously. "Okay, with you I'm not scared. I'm not scared of anything." In that moment, she felt no joy at their impending escape, only a profound ache as she looked at Ethan's blood-streaked face. Ethan didn't waste any more time. When the sound of the pump stopped, he looked out at the sea. A moment later, an inflatable raft appeared. He squeezed Isabelle's hand, and just like when he'd driven them off the cliff, he gave her a gentle smile. "Izzy, I love you." With that, he pulled her into the sea, and they swam desperately for the depths. Fortunately, the bodyguards had no desire for more trouble. They didn't fire any parting shots. Seeing the splash as the 2 went into the water, they scrambled into the cockpit, corrected their course, and fled for their lives. Underwater, Ethan still didn't dare relax. One arm wrapped around Isabelle's waist, he pulled them deeper. His Ice Queen wife might have said she could swim, but compared to Ethan, who'd spent years as a pirate, her skills were nothing. In less than 30 seconds, she was out of air. Ethan looked up. He couldn't see the yacht's shadow. He figured the bodyguards were long gone. He brought Isabelle slowly to the surface. The sky had darkened, and the sea was a vast pool of ink. Seeing the yacht's silhouette shrinking in the distance, Ethan let out a huge sigh of relief. Beside him, Isabelle gasped for air, her ample chest rising and falling beneath the water, pressed tightly against him. Ethan turned to look at her, a roguish grin on his face. "What? Never seen a man this handsome before. Are you ready to pledge your life to me?"